We'd like to call this meeting to order. Good morning. We'd like everyone to please stand for a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Good morning. It's good to see everyone, and thank you for being here. Once again, we have some important work. We're going to be looking at professional services for Eustis Elementary School this morning. Mr. Zachary, are you ready, sir?
Yes. Good morning, members of the board, superintendent. Today's a presentation portion for the RFQ to select an architect for the Eustis Elementary School. On June 17th of this year, we released an RFQ seeking proposals from qualified vendors for this project. The project estimated cost is almost $32 million, broken down for the design services at $2 million, construction almost $27 million, and the FF&E $3 million.
Can I make a note on that?
Yes.
So that was actually the estimated design cost in the budget when we published this RFQ. It has since been actually increased slightly in the latest capital plan. So just in case you see other numbers.
So what number's in the plan now?
You would have to ask me that question.
We were all thinking it.
It is probably closer to $50 million.
Oh, ooh.
Okay. Slight increase.
All right.
All right.
Maybe 40, 50, somewhere.
Between 40 and 50.
It's more.
Okay.
So the project consists of 3 phases: the planning phase, the design phase, and then the construction phase. The campus consists of Building 1, which is constructed in 28, which houses classrooms and administrative services offices. Building 2 was constructed in 1960, housing the kitchen and dining area, and then Building 3 in 1962, housing 5 primary classrooms, and Building 7 in 2001 with intermediate and ESE classrooms. And then we have also multiple portables for in the school. These are the challenges that were presented in the RFQ. The site is small and lacks adequate parking, parent or bus pickup areas, stormwater retention, or play fields. Building 1 is a historic building with small administration areas, undersized. So there are challenges to this project that the architects and the construction manager have to overcome for this project to take off. These were the shortlisted vendors. We received 8 proposals for consideration, and 4 of them made the shortlist: BRPH, Harvard Jolly, Schenkel Shultz, and Zyscovich, and that's the order that they're going to go in today. Because of the unique challenges for this project, we made phase 1, the planning phase, the focal point of this presentation today. So we did not require him to talk about any design or anything like that. The focus is just the planning. We asked him to do design approach as it applies to phase 1 will consist of plan and the timeline for accomplishing the master planning process. We also told him the elements of the comprehensive master planning process may include cost-benefit analysis of renovation versus replacement of Building 1, a historic building dating back to 1928. We asked him to do cost-benefit analysis of acquiring versus not acquiring remaining adjacent parcels, stakeholder meetings, community charts, conceptual master plans, and presentation of findings and conceptual plans to stakeholder groups to include presentation to the school board of Lake County. So these are the And because of that, we asked them to focus on these criteria, describe how your experience will bring value to the project, discuss the importance of master planning on how it relates to the project, describe your approach to phase one master planning, include elements or topics, alternatives that should be considered, and the stakeholders holders you would include in the process. Provide a proposed timeline for phase one, and discuss the qualification of staff to be involved in this phase and their role for the project, and explain the impact of their current workload on this phase. Each vendor is allocated 25 minutes, followed by 10 to 15-minute Q&A from you. And then after all the presentations occur, I'll invite all vendors back in to hear the discussion that may happen after, based on the presentations, and then I'll ask you to score them, rank them. And then I'll tally the ranking scores. The lowest ranking score obviously will be the one that we're going to be awarded, and I will announce that at the end of the session today, just like we did last time. Any questions?
So this is just a little bit different than what we've done in the past. So now we're just looking specifically at the planning phase.
Yep.
And so we'll come back later and look at design phase, or how's that going to work?
So today, we will select the architect that we think that is going to do the best job, obviously, in the planning phase. And that's the architect that's going to be the architect of record for the entire project. So once we do the contract, we do the planning and all that, then
So
design
essentially,
process.
by picking this person, we're also picking the same group that's
Yep.
going to come do the design.
Yep.
And so we won't get the benefit of seeing 4 different companies present their designs.
No, not at this stage. Because if we felt that if this phase doesn't go well, then the project in itself is gonna go well. So we may not go beyond that phase, this phase.
Do what now?
If phase one, the planning phase, doesn't go well after we hire this architect and there's pushback, some other issues may pop up, the project in itself may not move forward, and we may have to rethink another way of approaching this. So planning phase is the crucial phase for this project.
But we're not paying them $2 million to
No.
just do.
So,
No.
There would be a limited amount of scope that we would pay them for
Yep.
this first phase. So there would be 2 separate, so the RFQ actually has both phases in it. So if they do very well in the first phase, we come to an agreement, the best possible decision, which is really what they're there to help you do in this first phase, right? Is to come up with all the data, all of the alternatives that, we can then use to make the best possible decision for the district. And then if they do well, then we can go into phase 2 with the same architect. We don't have to go through the 6-month process of going out to get another architect. But if phase 1 doesn't go well, we want to reconsider where we're at, then we can end that process and go out for another, selection, or just figure out where we're going to go from there. But we can keep moving. But as far as what we're paying them in this first phase, we're basically paying them for the limited master planning. We're not committing to a $2 million contract with them for the entire thing.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
And where are we with the construction management?
It's next week.
Next
The
week?
presentation is next week.
Yes.
So the expectation in my mind, because this is a very unique project, and that in order to really determine what the cost is going to be to renovate the building from 1928, you're going to need that construction manager's input in the
Yep.
process. So does everybody understand that that's the first, is to look at that?
Yep. That's why we did both RFQs at the same time.
Good.
And then we're starting with the architects today, and then the construction manager next week.
And they're
Next Monday.
broken into phase 1 and phase 2. So the role of the CM in the first phase is basically to support the architect with the data, the constructability analysis, the cost estimating, and basically looking at the costs of those alternatives that the architect may come up with.
And how long is that process going to be?
So we have basically built in about 6 months. Hopefully, we can kind of resolve and come to a decision on what it's going to look like in 6 months. But, you know, if it looks like it's going to take a little bit longer, then we take a little
And
bit
then,
longer.
then is the plan, y'all will come back with those two groups and speak about
Yes.
their
Yes.
findings?
Yes.
That's the whole idea behind it.
Yeah.
We brought them in together after the shortlist. We emphasized that to them, so all vendors, both the CMs and the architects, are aware of how this is going to go. And I stressed to them multiple times that phase one really is the ball game for this entire project. So they understood that this planning phase is crucial to the success of the entire project. So we either move forward with them, or if for some reason things didn't go as planned, then we're going to have to come back and reconsider and look at other options. But they both understood. We took them both groups went to visit the site to see for themselves, and then I brought them again about a week, sometime right after Labor Day, and we had a meeting with all shortlisted vendors, both the CMs and the architects, and went step by step about this evaluation criteria, what it means for the entire district for this first phase. So they understood what they're getting into.
What's the expectation of these presentations? So they're not bringing us anything other than their,
Just to evaluate
Skill
based on
sets?
they're not, there's the criteria, this is the criteria they were given. And
Right, that's- I saw that.
based on that, we rank them and who we feel that is going to be the best vendor to do this phase one and carry the project forward. How they're going to approach it with the community, what is their timeline? Because if they don't win the community, then, so.
So let's say it goes well, and they do a really great job, and we've got the planning taken care of. Do they go ahead and design, and
They
then they
can.
bring that to us?
Yeah,
Or they
after
just-
that, they'll bring everything to you after that.
Right, so in the end of the master planning process, you will see conceptual plans that otherwise you would see, here. So basically, that will help you then make that decision and say, yes, this is the route that we want to take with this project. And then, we can commit to that architect to go into the actual design process for it. But you should see alternatives, conceptual plan alternatives.
But the one drawback is that we normally see like 4 different
Right.
designs, right? And we're only going to see one through this process.
Oh, no, you could see multiple. I mean,
But they would all come from the same
It's-
architect?
they would all
They'd come from the same architect.
architect.
Right,
yes.
right.
Sorry,
Instead of
that
4
same
different-
architect would come up with multiple things. So part of the thing was, I think there are at least 4 different approaches, and probably some that I haven't even thought of, right, for this. And so we did not want anybody to come in with a design that presupposed what the board wanted to do. And so, that's why we asked them to focus on phase one, because I think there are a lot of different routes that we could take. And I think the purpose of this master planning process is to be able to say, to come up with all of the data and the alternatives and the public input that helps us make the best decision. Because it's a lot of money to spend, and it's going to be a difficult project, any way we do it.
That's why we provided them with these.
where are we with owning all the property we need?
There is, so we own 1.75 acres on the other block. There is one house that is still remaining.
Carl.
The Schleboms, who are very nice people.
Very much so.
Yes, but they, like any of us would, they want to be made whole if they sell their property, so that they are not taking on additional costs in moving. And I will tell you, we will never get to that point with an appraisal. Their property will never appraise to the amount that it would take them to find an equivalent property and to move. And so, that's a difficult decision.
And with the architect in mind, there are other people that sometimes have been holdouts, like at the villages, and the villages just boxes them in. So is that something that,
And I'm sorry.
I was
Saying
wondering,
build
similar
around
thing,
them,
you're building
like-
around them, because we own 1.75.
we could build all the way around and
We could. So I think that's part of the process of evaluating the alternatives. Is it, could we save enough by having that property? Is it efficient enough that it makes up for the additional above appraisal that we would have to pay them to be able to do that? It's,
It's about money. I don't think it's about money.
well,
Right.
that is part of the discussion process. They are stakeholders as well in this process.
And the existing.
As well as the church,
The existing school site's about 4 acres, correct?
yes. That
And we've
block is
added an
about 4
additional
acres.
1.5, 1.75 so far? So we're
1.7.
just shy of 6 total.
And St. Thomas Episcopal Church owns the other half of that block.
And that was the parking lot that we were going to rent, co-use with them or
Well,
whatever
I mean,
else.
that'll
It's
be
just
part
an
of the
option.
discussion
Right.
as well,
But,
yeah.
Yeah, we were just going to have access to that.
They
We weren't
haven't
going
made
to
any
own that at this
commitment.
point.
it's still, even if you owned it all, it's still a very small site.
It is
Oh,
very
right.
small.
Agreed entirely, yeah.
Okay, let the games begin,
We're clear?
kind of.
Okay.
Mud.
So, all right, so I'll bring BRPH and then the next and next.
Thank you.
This.
I'm just gonna log.
care of business.
I'm just gonna log out of Centegix just so it doesn't go off. I'm gonna I'm not giving up my caffeine.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
Yes. All right, I'll pass it. So. Yeah. Pass it.
Just hard copies of our
Yeah, I'll
presentation.
pass it. Let me-
And then some placeholders.
Got it. Got it.
Hold on.
Well, good morning. Yeah, over there. So
It's this one.
this is BRPH. I'm going to let you do a quick introduction, and then you'll have 25 minutes to present, followed by 10 to 15 minutes Q&A from the board. When you speak into the microphone because it's recorded, so it needs to be clear.
Is this one on, or we gotta use
This
that?
one is on.
Okay. And what about the clicker for the slides? There you go.
You want to do a quick introduction of the team,
Sure, I'm trying to.
and then I will start the clock.
How do I go back on this? Sorry.
I'm sorry?
Oh, here, sorry.
Got it?
I got it now. All right. Hello?
Hello.
All right, we're here. All right, well, good morning. I'm Francisco Alvarado. I'm a vice president and principal at BRPH. And with me presenting today is Bradley James. He's a project manager and lead education architect for BRPH.
Thank you.
All right, let me know
Good
when the-
morning. Welcome.
Okay. So thank you for the opportunity for allowing us to present today for the Lake County Eustis Elementary Design Professional Services Project. We're here today to kind of show you how we plan to engage the Eustis Elementary community to create a future-ready campus that honors its historic past. So as I mentioned, I'm Francisco Alvarado, and this is Bradley James. Combined, we have over 40 years of experience in the architecture and master planning fields. Today, we're going to kind of show you, our agenda for today is how our experience brings value, the importance of master planning, the overall approach to the Phase 1 master planning, our Phase 1 timeline or schedule, and an overview of our staff qualifications for this project. All right. So we are familiar with the site. We actually perform a condition assessment back of Building 1 in 2020. So within that expertise and our familiarity with the site, we will work to provide expertise to meet SREF requirements, apply SEPTED principles to increase the school's security, and work with the local authorities having jurisdictions for all the required permitting that's required. The master plan does provide many different options and phases in order for this project to move forward, and we're ready to tackle all of those head on. So our goal for this project, our guiding principles for the project is that we understand the campus and we'll bring creative ideas for improvement, the needs. Some key items to highlight is we aim to provide a modern and adaptable learning environment. We will improve the overall campus safety by improving the stacking and circulation of the parent drop-off and bus drop-off and pedestrian and vehicular circulation along the site, and also create a point of pride for the community. So from our learning of the condition assessments back in 2020, this project and this site kind of provides a lot of challenges and a lot of opportunities as well. To go over some of the challenges that we have, right, is, like I mentioned, security is key and foremost. We notice there are multiple poorly controlled entry points into the site with no defined perimeter security. We have an assumed carpool lane on an active street. We have a facility, right, that has been, by the Costolory report, noted to be ready to be demolished, with the exception of Building 7, which is to remain. We have existing portables that we're looking to replace within the new, or get rid of in the new design. And then there's been subsequent purchases of land by the district as the project has moved on. Currently, there's using some of that land for current faculty parking, but that is off-site. And so part of the opportunities, though, that we have is that there's this beautiful large live oak tree in the middle of the existing campus that we want to find opportunities to either improve outdoor play or outdoor learning programs. We want to work with Building 7, which is scheduled to remain, so that's going to be an integral part of the overall master plan and how we incorporate that project and use our dollars for the areas that need to be improved. We have again, we have opportunities with different site additional land acquisition strategy that the district will have. Like I said, based on the current land that has been acquired, there are two potential sites still to be acquired. One is the church site, or where the thrift store is, and the other one is the single residential family owner. And throughout the master planning process, we will kind of work to evaluate all those different options to determine what is the best strategy. So we see multiple paths moving forward to be able to provide the district and the school board members in the community different approaches to achieve the overall goals of the project. So like I mentioned, we're already familiar with the site. We've actually performed some reality capture scans of existing Building 1, so there is no learning curve for our team. We're ready to start on day one. So we know that with every project, especially a project like this, understanding the community and learning from where existing population is going to be critical. So understanding the current size school, right now we understand it's about 391 students with about 32 teachers. The majority of the population here comes from economic disadvantaged families, and as such, we understand that when we're able to transform a project and a site like this for the community, it not only helps increase that community pride, but also helps improve student performance overall, which I think we all work forwards to working towards. So as you can tell from this slide, this is very much a community school. Most of the students that kind of are assigned to the school are within the 2-mile walking radius of the school. So again, it's going to be very critical to understand in the master planning how the bus drop-off, how the pedestrian traffic flow into the school is in creating safe opportunities for students to get to school and get back home, as well as car parent drop-off circulation, and really trying to separate that from, the bus population that's there, which I believe there's like 3 buses assigned to the school at this time. So working towards all of that, the community will be a key participant in the master planning process and the charrettes that we look to hold as we move forward. So as we were preparing for this presentation, our team had the opportunity to kind of really wanted to dive into the history of Eustis Elementary, right? Why is this school so critical, so important to the community, right? What's the historical significance of this? Overall, like I said, it's approaching 100 years of educating the local community. It started out in 1980s. The Eustis School 1880s, the school operation was in a hotel, right? And it slowly kind of outgrew that and created into a 2-story dedicated school. In 1924 and 25, Eustis Elementary School was built to support the growing needs of the community. In the 30s, there was an interesting time period where there was an issue with the local high school. And so at that point, really, Eustis Elementary had all grades going into that school, from elementary to high school during that Eustis High School construction. During the 50s and 60s, Eustis experienced a population explosion, which created for additional buildings to be built on site. And now, as the school approaches its 100th birthday, we seek to honor its history while meeting the future-ready educational needs. A school like Eustis Elementary, right? It's always been there for the community as the community has continued to evolve, right? And what we're prepared to do as part of this master plan is help it evolve so that it continues serving the community for the next 100 years. Again, we're no strangers to maximizing the resources that we have. The dollars that we all contribute to help fund and build these schools are very critical, and we want to make sure that most of those dollars are being used to help advance the education of the students. Here are just 2 examples of which we did these with unoccupied campuses. One is South Lake Elementary for Brevard, and the other one is Washington Elementary. You can clearly tell the before and after. As dramatic as these before and after shots are, so is the performance of the students and the community pride that was had before and after the school was built. But you don't have to take my word for it. Angel Garcia from Palm Beach County Schools noted, as we were doing Washington Elementary, that we are bringing the school up to new standards equivalent to that of new construction. The community and students deserve the latest and greatest that the district has to offer. And I'm sure that's the same commitment this school board and this staff has for the new Eustis Elementary. So as we were working toward and learning more about this project, our team realized, hey, this is a little bit similar. We've done something like this before. This wouldn't be our first time taking a school that's approaching 100 years and transforming it and honoring its history and heritage from the past. We actually did this for Northborough Elementary School in West Palm Beach. Similar school. It was a really old, historic school built in the 1920s. The district had sequentially started purchasing the adjacent land of the block next to it, where they ended up using to develop the play fields and some of the parking lots you can see in the drawings there. And then, again, a key component and a key feedback that we received not only from the district but from the community was honoring that past, right? They didn't want a new looking school. They wanted their Northborough Elementary School. But how do we do that? How did we achieve that, right? And really what our team did, knowing that being able to take down some of the facades or reusing some of that school and updating it to the new building codes and new standards would have been too cost prohibitive. But what we did is we took elements. We actually saved some portions of the school. In this case, we saved a portion of the entry brick and the archway from the existing school, and we reused it into the new design. The rest of the school was all new, but we used a lot of the architectural aesthetics from that school and applied it to here. And as you can see, it really transformed the schools and allowed the teachers to really do even more amazing work with the students in that school. So Bradley, here we'll talk about some of the master planning options.
Okay, so before, I just want to show you that we have 4 options that we're going to present today. But before we got to these 4 options, we looked at probably a dozen different options. And the one thing that we did come about while doing this was, it's going to require the community to be a part of the master planning process. So even though we have a lot of knowledge about the site itself, and we feel like these are good options to show, we do feel like, based on getting the community involvement and the different stakeholders, that any of these options could change, right? So I just want to set up this slide so you can see. You'll see on the right side, there's a phasing that shows you what's going on. The red shows demolition of those buildings in that phase. Yellow is like buildings to remain. Light green is for areas of playgrounds. Dark green is for structures to remain operational during construction. So in option A, this one gave us the opportunity, if we were to acquire the land in the southeast, which is at the corner of Lemon and St. Mary, potentially to get into joint agreement use with the church. This would allow for student parking, enough staff parking, and a good amount of vehicular stacking on the site. It creates a new entry to the campus along Lemon Avenue. We did maintain the colonnade that you see, even in the new build-out, to kind of, as Francisca showed in the previous slide, want to keep some of the history of the previous school. And it also allows for area of new water retention. So this option also, in all the options that we present, we are still looking at that residential lot potential as not being acquired, so it remains, and we have to kind of master plan around it. One of the advantages of this option is that there's a great visual connection from the admin entrance to all the exits of the campus right there in the layout. So this is one of the advantages here of this option. Let's go to the next slide. What you'll see here is we're kind of showing an animation of the phasing. So it kind of shows you what comes down, again, from the colors I showed you. The red was a demo, and the orange is a to remain, and so on. So this kind of shows you how the phasing goes out, and then the final build out at the end for each of those phases. And then it lists a couple of the advantages of each of these phases here. So that's option A. Good thing about option A is that all the buildings that we're showing, because we've acquired quite a bit of site, it allows us to have single-story buildings throughout in this layout. All right, let's go to option B. Option B, this option is if you were to utilize the land that you currently have, not acquiring any additional land, just the land that you currently own. So the land that we had shown in the previous option with parking, let's just say we didn't get that land. We would use existing Salem Street as a part of the new entry, right? The classroom buildings would be 2-story because now we have a smaller footprint to work with. We'd create a new pre-K and kindergarten wing with its own kind of parking and entrance. And because of the site constraints, it doesn't have enough area for retention. So what we're doing is there's an underground detention under the parking lot. And that's something that we could look at if you were to utilize the existing option land as you see it. One con about this one is that, again, with the retention, it's a little bit more costly, but it's if you were to work with existing sites. So here is what it looks like in the phasing. The 2-story classroom wing there, showing how the stacking is on the site, and then the pre-K and the new admin. And then once this building is demoed, you can create play fields and so on, and covered play. Okay, moving to option C. Option C is similar to option A in that you have, this one gains the most stacking, which gets a lot of the vehicular traffic off the streets and gives you a good amount of stacking. Again, potential, collaborating with the church. You could have shared parking for them to use on the weekends while we use it for parking during the school day. This one completely gets rid of the colonnade here, the existing, and repurposes a new entry along the west side of the campus. This option actually allows for the most retention on the site, and this is where, if you're, again, to acquire most of the land, you could do this. This one also creates a strong central axis, so bus drop-off and car drop-off gives you a strong kind of control for security on the campus side of things. Okay, next. And again, quickly, the animation for this option kind of shows you how it builds out and the advantages. And this one, as I indicated before, has the most stacking of vehicles on the site. And then finally, we'll go to option D. Now, option D is, this one kind of allows bus parking to come along Lemon Avenue and vehicular access along Citrus. This one creates a very strong central axis with a new colonnade entrance down the center. It does, the disadvantage with this one is it now puts the parking, potential shared parking further north away from the church. But the advantage is this could be done in 2 phases. The whole campus could be constructed in the south before you almost demolish the existing campus. So it would be done phasing-wise a little bit more efficiently. So that's an advantage to an option like this. And then here is an animation showing it, showing what it looks like. And in all the options that we show, we try to keep that large live oak tree right in the center because we know the importance of that oak tree. So we've kept it in all our options. Again, we've shown the existing residents to remain in this. And of course, if we do acquire the land, we could potentially master plan it a little bit differently. Okay, Francisco will now talk about the design thinking process.
So hope you all are as excited as I am in kind of looking at those different master planning options, but this is just our own initial thoughts, right? Really, a master plan process relies on the input of many different stakeholders that will work with the district staff to determine what that stakeholder list is. And really, we follow a clean, simple process. It starts with discovery, right? That is gathering and listening to the needs of the stakeholders. It's translating that, understanding what that means. Then we jump into this part and starting to put some of our ideas on paper, iterating those with feedback, continual feedback as we kind of come back with the different stakeholders on what works, what doesn't work. And then once we get through that phase, that would be part of phase 2 would be the documentation and implementation, and then of course the construction of the project. So this is a proven process that we've had on many different projects with that require a lot of community engagement throughout.
Okay, and in this one, what we're really showing is just examples where we've integrated students as a part of the stakeholder process. In Tomoka Elementary School, I'll just say even the students were there selecting colors for the building, so we like to incorporate them as a part of our design thinking. Next.
Yeah, on that, it's important to know that we use these examples as also work with the district if you guys allow to use our process of workshops and charrettes to also as a potential lesson plan with teachers at the school. Then that way, what we did in Tomoka is we worked with 4th graders on that one so that they can see the ultimate result once the project was built.
All right, this one shows a linear kind of schedule, but we know that design thinking and this kind of process is not a linear process. So we just wanted to show just some of the key milestones in phase 1. But if you go to the next slide, what it does show is really the path at which master planning will occur. So it's not linear, it's more serpentine. So if we got a notice to proceed in December, we'd move into design thinking, and we just listed, we kind of took a stab at what the stakeholders groups could look like, the school board members, principal and staff, facilities department, student representatives, food and nutrition, school SRO, ESC specialists, PTA members, local churches, historic society, are just some of the groups that we'd want to meet with as we're getting into the master planning process. And we'd have individual workshops with these groups, and then from the takeaway, we'd submit a master planning thinking workbook. We'd go into master planning, we'd meet with the design, the facilities group and the school board to present during the process. And we go all the way around doing 2 different iterations of master planning, refining it after regrouping with the entire design thinking group, and then submitting the master plan in July of next year. Next.
As you can see from this slide, it's a very involved process with multiple stakeholders, and that is really what's going to be the key to this project.
And then finally, this just shows, okay, good. And finally, this just kind of shows your typical phase 2 schedule. Once we get through master planning, it shows all the processes we go through in the design side of things. One thing that's important about this phase is that, you know, maybe during construction documents, if there's a need to procure some of those early packages like electrical gear, mechanical gear, potentially elevators, anything like that, we could do that earlier so there's no delay during construction. Next.
So we've assembled an incredible team that I have the honor of leading. First and foremost will be Bradley Megan Nielsen Hagstad, will be the programming and design architect. And Tim Campbell is our in-house master planner. He's a professional landscape architect by training. One of the things that Tim does to supplement our architecture team is he kind of works with us to kind of laying out some of those big components and analyzing the site and the community at large and really maximizing those opportunities. As you've probably seen and you probably know, is this campus does provide a lot of unique challenges. But with Tim's support on this project, I'm very confident that we'll be able to kind of work through different options, in particular with dealing with the site acquisition aspect of it and developing options that kind of work with the different land acquisition strategies that we have. And then this team of leadership on the project will be supported by a team of architects and then designers and engineers all throughout, because while master planning is key on the design side, just as important is really infrastructure planning on this one, right? Understanding where the utilities are coming from so that we can kind of provide a master plan with the end product in mind to help reduce project costs all throughout. And again, all of these folks here are all under the BRPH umbrella. We're proposing a one BRPH solution for this project, so they will all be under my leadership as we kind of move forward on this project. So, as you can tell, our team is ready to get started. We've done already a lot of due diligence on this project, right? This year, we celebrate our 60th year anniversary. BRPH, for those who don't know, started right along to support the Apollo mission to the moon. And as President John F. Kennedy noted, right, we choose to do these things not because they are easy, but because they are hard. And this project will be difficult. It'll be difficult for all stakeholders involved. There will be difficult decisions that need to be made. But this team, I am confident, has the expertise, has the knowledge, and has the passion to secure and make this school ready for the next 100 years. With that, I want to thank you for your time, and we look forward for any questions that the board may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions,
I
Mr.
do.
Matthias?
So I've got 3 quickies.
Okay.
So since you worked on the site, or have been on the site in 2020, what were your findings?
Okay. So our findings were, let me kind of put it through here. Oh, I'm sorry. So most significant in our findings is really some of the security concerns that we have, right? Like I mentioned, there's multiple really undefined points of potential entry into the school. There's not. Usually we try to prepare for 3 levels of a barrier into a school nowadays. Unfortunately, even though it is a community school, that's still kind of critical, and there are ways to do that while still not making it feel like it's not part of the community. Additionally, Building 1, right, has its challenges. Some of it is construction, especially like the basement level, which no longer can be used. It's tough. The fire system needs to be completely changed in that one to provide the actual optimal protection that the building needs. Some of the learning spaces were very inadequate, really, to what today's standards of teaching is. And it's really kind of hodgepodge there. To be honest with you, what the principal does with her staff and her teachers there on an everyday basis is really a testament to what the power of great educators with passion are able to do. And we only hope to supplement that by providing a great design along the way with it to kind of help her increase that on there. Building 7 has its challenges, but it hasn't consolidated out by DOE. So we'll work to kind of integrate Building 7 into the rest of the architecture as we see fit. There's not many outdoor play areas in the project. We understand that with kids, especially kids of this age, right, kind of getting that mental break and having that outdoor play time does kind of help them increase and refocus as we move into the future. So that's going to be critical too.
So I was surprised you were so far ahead with your renderings. And
Okay.
that explains that you already gone through the building
Yeah.
challenges. On the one of your iterations, you showed underground retention.
Yes.
And with the site so small, why wouldn't you incorporate that on all of the options?
So Bradley, I think you can take this one.
Well, just because of the constraints of the site, that one, it's important to get parking for the campus. That's option two. One over. One more.
B.
There you go. So again, we had to look at maximizing classroom buildings in a two-story. The rest of the options that we presented were all single-story to kind of meet the scale of the community. But we realized this was more like a campus-style layout, and we thought, well, it could be utilized on the other sites if needed or if desired. It's a little bit more more costly to do that, and obviously to do a retention on its own, separate from a parking, from a feasibility standpoint, makes more sense. But this, because of the tighter site constraints, I think this would work because you're going to need retention with
But
new
no matter
construction.
what, you're tight you're tight regardless. That seems like a brilliant solution to help gain land.
Yes.
And I'm just curious why you didn't use that
Sure.
on others.
It's because this is the tightest constraint that we have, right? And so this one, there will be no other option but to use the underground subsurface storage for stormwater retention. On the other options, obviously, we haven't gone the survey, the geotech that's needed for it, but our preliminary review, we feel this has a high enough water table that we may be able to use some of the adjacent areas within the site and create enough areas of retention that we won't have to go underground. But because we know underground is an option as we move forward, that's why we have the engineering team involved from the very beginning, because we need to kind of look at that cost benefit of doing underground storage for all the options versus finding opportunities to use surface storage for each of the options.
I think it's a brilliant solution. And it looked like to me that from your evaluation, the only thing you're saving is the colonnade in the best case.
Not that we're saving, right? What we're looking at doing is we're looking at taking elements from there, similar to what we did in Northborough, right? Whether it's those columns exactly, right? To be able to replicate it into the new. So there's still that tie to that existing architecture that's there and that existing history, right? That colonnade is the point of focus, right? It's what draws everyone into that school, right? And so we want to kind of keep it, but like what we did in Northborough, we kept elements of it and we reused it, but then we kind of borrowed that same kind of style and incorporated into the overall design, but with newer technologies, but still made it look like or honor its heritage of the past.
If I understood your presentation on that, Washington, was it?
That was Northborough Elementary in Palm Beach County.
You saved some bricks, is basically my takeaway.
Yeah, we did. We saved some bricks, and it's just the technology that was used to build schools 100 years ago is just not the same, and we felt that doing that, we did study trying to keep like a full portions of the facade, and then they just weren't structurally able to be kind of really demolished without creating damage to them also. So that same kind of analysis will have to be done on this one.
But with your experience, and could we save time and also money if you just said, here's what we need to do, try and save some bricks, and let's move on?
So I will answer that by saying it needs to be a collective decision by the whole. We need to understand what's important to the current students. We understand this is a generational school. There are teachers who are teaching there that went to school there in the past. There's community members who's been second, third generation of folks who've kind of been in that school, right? So their input is valuable, right? To come to a decision now without hearing what the community and what the rest of the district school needs to kind of say, I think would be a disservice to the project, right? I think we need to be able to hear that understand, and then us then allow that and find a way to support the district, say, okay, here are the options that we have now, right? Now that we've heard everyone's concerns, what everybody wants out of this project, then this is how we plan to achieve those in all of those. And some of those, as we kind of uncover, I'm almost certain that we'll uncover some even additional options that we haven't thought about now because we haven't had the opportunity to meet with those stakeholders yet.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you.
All right. So I guess my question is about the Salem Street. So right now it's a through street, is that right?
Yes.
Goes all the way through?
Yes.
And all of your iterations, it becomes cut off in some way because, of course, you're figuring worst case scenario, we don't acquire that residential
Yes.
property. I'm just wondering the likelihood that the city or zoning or anything is going to allow that to occur.
So interesting enough, the block next to it appears like there was a street that used to cross over this way too. At some point, we went back and done some like Google aerial kind of changes, and that at some point was closed off. I think it was this street. This street used to continue going all the way through here, and then at one point that was kind of closed off for this site to be done as well. So it's a discussion with the definitely with the city, right? I believe that is a county road, so we're going to have to kind of look and work with the county to determine what are the options. We've done that in the past and kind of exploring that options to change it. We'll probably have to work with a traffic engineer to do the studies to say that this isn't going to impact the traffic for the overall community as a whole. So we are hopeful, very hopeful that that's going to be a possibility. We've had to do that in the past.
And I would add, I don't know if that's appropriate to do, but just for the board's understanding that they only use it in a one-way setting during car pickup. So it's not even accessible both ways for morning
Exactly.
arrival and dismissal. So it's being, okay, so now it's one way all the time. So it's, I've had kids there, right? So it's a little bit tricky, that road. It's a little bit dangerous in the morning. Like, it isn't the best circumstance. I think it would be great, an advocation for us to go to the city and the county and do whatever's possible.
Absolutely. And we will support you every step of the way along with that.
And to be clear on that, I'm not trying to overstep, but Howard Lane, the other one, is already closed, the one that kind of runs through the church one, and
Yes.
that design there?
Yeah, because that's
Still on the
currently being
GIS map.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's currently used as as faculty parking, off-site faculty parking right now.
Okay.
What was the size of the building that you guys redid, the size of the property that you kept the architecture and some of the
Oh,
bricks
sure.
from?
That was Northborough. I believe Northborough overall was about 7 when combined between, so Northborough here, this is where the existing school was, right? We kind of replicated this kind of courtyard-style school. And it was practically this, and then the Palm Beach District acquired this. In totality, I think it became about a 7-acre site, 7-8 acre site.
Okay.
So
Twice.
very similar to this one.
And then what is and this might be a Kelly question just for understand. I saw there's like between 30 new classrooms, probably replacing, when we say new, right, replacing. But then there's another design that was like 43. Is there what are we looking to do with classrooms?
So we had said about 750 student stations. So,
Dividing that by 25? What are you doing with that?
well, it's harder math than that.
Sure, because of ESC and all the right, I understand.
Well, yeah, and you've got ESC, you've got primary classrooms that are 18, and then you've got secondary or intermediate classrooms that are 22.
So our range would be,
So I have not done that math
Okay.
in my head.
okay. And are we?
So what was the answer? How many
Yeah,
classrooms?
there wasn't an answer. And it was similar to the bricks in the front, right? That was not them. It's helpful for us. I know right now they've got the demographics for the school size. Is there a plan for growth in this redo? Or are we sticking to the size now because of the size of the school?
So we thought that 750 was probably the maximum that we could fit on this.
Ever.
On this site.
Okay,
Yeah, I mean, I don't believe that, just looking at these, unless we went to 2-story somewhere, then
okay.
we were probably going to be maxed out.
At 750 student stations. Okay,
So are we planning on growth?
Well, right now, the school, we have
Right.
about 300.
Right, so
So that's growth.
that's growth.
So we're planning on it doubling in enrollment.
DOE had it at 391, so.
Yeah. 419.
So that does allow for.
Yeah,
So we're at 419 now?
yeah.
Okay, because day one was at 368, so you've gained a bunch. Got it, okay. All right, add that there.
Any other questions, Ms. Luke or Mr. Dodd?
I don't think so.
Mr. Brandyberg?
I've got a couple. These designs look great. Have you guys considered any other design models for the site, meaning not a traditional K-5, whether that's an early learning center or another school site? I mean, we're at, what, 5.75 give or take acres now. If we gain that other property, I think we're maxed out around 6. So have we thought of other ways to maximize this site in addition to the traditional school designs for the stakeholder meetings and everything else? Because I want to make sure we're looking at this from all angles. If we're looking at spending upwards of $50 million on a relatively small school site, what's going to be the biggest bang for the buck and ROI and cost benefit on this project? I just want to make sure we're looking at it from all angles through this planning phase and not just being dead set on a traditional K-5.
Sure, no, understood. For the purpose of the presentation, we focus on the K-5 model. Again, I think that's a valid point, and this is why we encourage school board members to participate in our early charrette so that we can get that receive that feedback, and then be able to provide an option that may look an early childhood development center as part of the project as well, right? I think there's different options. I know we don't want to go too vertical on a school like this, and this, which is so buried into the community that it is. So there's some sensitivities there that need to be taken place. But I think throughout the planning process, right, all of those types of ideas, because we had 4 that we showed you, but really we started out with about 15. Right? We had 12 to start out, right? And then they all felt really good to us, and we kind of were maximizing and working them out. But frankly, they were all based on the K-12 model. But any other need that may be required, right, I think we can always incorporate through the planning process.
Sure. No, I just want to be mindful. We've got another elementary site less than 1.5 miles from this campus, and certainly want to maximize this site. We've got room to grow out there as well, if and when that comes. So I just want to make sure we're looking at it from all angles. On your most, I guess, dense or most student station option of the 4 you presented, was that at 750, or do you know how many students could fit student station-wise on the maximized side of the 4 that you showed? Maybe option D might have been the most classes, or maybe C?
So,
because I think right now we're at permanent capacity of 519 according to the data that I had. We're at 419 now, so we're getting closer.
Yes.
But it's just how much do you think you can fit on that site? Can we fit 750? Does that require going 2 stories?
Sure.
Like, how do we make that happen?
So this is the kind of the maxed out version, if you would, right?
Yep.
This one does fit 42 addition classroom to what's already there, right?
Okay.
So in total, I think this student station count would kind of lead us closer to pushing us towards 800, if not a little bit more. So again, a lot of it is going to depend on the land acquisition strategy that the district's going to have on this, right? Because obviously, if we can get the residential lot, right?
It looks like we're pretty tapped out on that residential lot and whatever we share with the church. So we could, right?
There could be some other options to kind of evaluate along with that. So again, that land acquisition strategy is going to be key to determining the maximizing of the site. But our goal would be to work with district staff and the facilities team, and kind of determine what's the right amount of classrooms that we can fit in the site.
No, that's clear, and I appreciate it. Last comment, Ollie, if I can. Do you think that the church would be open to this idea of moving their lot all the way up? I mean, I know we're trying to plan, and I like the idea of phasing, being able to do with what you thought, but it's a tough site, no matter how we do this.
So the last conversations that we've had with the board or with the church, they were actually not really interested even in a long-term lease for parking. Now, I will say that it's been a while, so, leadership changes, and so we can approach them. I would not expect that they would be interested in something where they sold the property outright. That they would be more interested in a long-term lease.
Yeah.
And if that was the case, then I would say we would try to put parking there instead.
Good point. Yep.
Awesome.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
Just have one quick question,
sure.
if I may, before you
Absolutely.
skedaddle. If we do not acquire, let's take worst-case scenario, and we don't acquire any of this additional properties, what is the maximum student station that you would be able to put in?
So with this, we were able to fit the 750 as required in the...
Even if we get no additional parking?
Even if we get no additional site. But it does require a two-story building in order to do it. Yes, thank you for reminding me about that.
Thank you. Excellent presentation. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
What is the score again? What's the score again? 1, 2, 3, 4.
No scoring. Just 3-1.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I was wondering if you had one of those already.
Are you ready for the next?
Yes. Thank you.
Well, good morning.
Thank you.
Morning, thank you.
So I'll give you a minute or so to introduce your team. You'll have 25 minutes to present. I'll let you know at the 10-minute mark, and then the 5 and the 2, and so on. After that, we'll open it up for a Q&A by the board. When you speak, please speak in the microphone. This one. Is this one?
Is this one?
Keep the time. Once you do that.
We're actually going to do our introduction as part of the presentation, so.
Okay. Ready to go?
This is working too.
Ready? All right. Well, we appreciate the opportunity to be here with you today to present on Eustis Elementary School. We are Harvard Jolly PBK architects. We've operated as Harvard Jolly in Florida since 1938. That makes 86 years, if my math is right. Last year, we merged with PBK Architects, so we still operate as the way we always have in Florida, same personnel, but now we have the resources of the nationwide firm. I'm Tom Vandekieft. A little bit about myself. I'll be the project manager. A number of years ago, living in many of the metropolitan areas of Orlando, ended up having a lot of work out in Lake County and really enjoyed the vibe out here, the atmosphere, the community. Me and my wife decided to move out here in 2006 to the east part of the county. During that time, I became a member, one of the inaugural members of the Mount Plymouth Sorrento CRA, and I'll get into a little bit about that throughout the presentation. My role as the project manager will be watching over the time and money on the project and beginning to end interaction throughout the project. That way, when we get these users' needs in the beginning of the project, we're carrying them all the way through construction, that you have one point of contact from the beginning of the project up to the end of the project.
And this is advancing on its own. So if I keep going backwards, it's because it's automatically advancing. My name is David Wallace. I'm also a Lake County resident. And my role in this project is as project architect. Tom and I will team on the project. We overlap a lot in the management of the project. We're both going to protect the schedule and the budget. And I'll focus more on production and coordination with our consultants and so on. In addition to my architectural education or educational architecture experience, I also wanted to point out that early in my career, I started as a historic preservationist. I was a member of the State Historic Preservation Office of Alabama, the agency responsible for preservation in Alabama, and I worked in downtown revitalization and sort of defending old buildings at that time, which really cut my teeth on preservation, on the tenets of preservation. And that's stayed with me all through my career. But something I learned that was sort of a surprise was that preservation is a practical a pursuit. A building needs to be usable. And so that's something I've taken with me throughout my life, in spite of the fact that, you know, a beautiful restoration of a historical gem is one thing, but a building needs to provide utility for us. We have organized our presentation based on the 5 presentation criteria that staff has provided, and we understand that the board and the staff are focused on this planning phase 1 of this project, which I think is appropriate considering the difficult decisions ahead of us. So the first criteria is how our experience adds value.
And these are a number of projects we did in the county with the school board as well as the government in the past. Upper right-hand, Carver Middle School was a full campus replacement out in Leesburg. Lower left, Mount Dora Middle School was campus partial replacement, renovation, comprehensive project. A little bit of our historical revival look there at the Leesburg Library in downtown Leesburg. It's really become a cornerstone of downtown Leesburg there. But Leesburg High School, upper left, is a project very similar to this. It's got that Mediterranean look. We were able to save and renovate that original historical building built within a year or two of the Eustis Elementary School, and we were able to replicate that architectural style throughout the balance of the campus.
In addition to our Lake County projects that we've shown, we also have worked throughout the state with projects very similar to this in architectural style, the Mediterranean style. These projects that we're showing, some are renovations, some are new construction. For instance, the Spanish River Library of Boca Raton on the lower left is a new construction based on the sort of Addison-Meisner Mediterranean style of architecture that's prevalent in that community. The second criteria is the importance of master planning, and I love this photo. This photo is from 1940. It's the basement, right, of your school. It really depicts kind of why we're here.
The ceiling tiles are the same. They're still the same.
Yes, still dark and cramped. But anyway, let's talk about the importance of master planning.
And we know, if you want to run back to that, 21st century learning initiatives, that's a dark little space. We know about daylighting now and temperature and making a comfortable environment for the kids to learn, so that learning is their focus. So, to begin the master planning process, we want to bring the community together to agree on come together to create anyway, yeah. So, the community. The upper right-hand corner through education, lower right corner through community involvement. The lower left-hand corner there, we took a panel from one of the old buildings, some artwork there, put it on one of the new buildings, so we were keeping that history alive. And then on the upper left-hand corner, just through formal community meetings. Another one is tradition. Going to name drop a little bit there. That's my daughter, Ella. She was Martha Washington in the George Festival this year. But I want to talk real quick about Sorrento Avenue. On the CRA committee, one of the first things we did was the state turned over State Road 46 to the county to become County Road 46. We were able to bring the community together to submit names for that road, take a community involvement, and then we ended up having a vote, and Sorrento Avenue is what we settled on.
And the third criteria is our approach to phase 1. And so we'll begin talking about that.
A bunch of bullet points up there in the red, but really what that boils down to is the 5 Ds: discover, dream, define, design, and deliver. We'll start off with discovery.
And as we begin the project, we are already immersed in the community as Lake County residents, but we want to immerse ourselves in the micro-community of Eustis Elementary. And so we'll begin that. We'll begin conversations with committees and small focus groups, and we'll also do some assessment of the site, kind of an understanding of the problems that you have on site with your buildings, your site circulation, et cetera.
Some of the strategic initiatives, again, a bunch of technical terms up there, but we'll go through goals and objectives, identifying the needs by size and space. And when we say needs, we're talking about needs. We know there's going to be a lot of wants on this project, but we really need to identify the needs. Verify the space needs, priorities, best practices, and again, those priorities. And one of the big priorities now is school safety. Again, we have a bunch of bullet points up here on the right, but the question we really need to be asking is the campus the way it is right now, is it inherently a safe campus? If it is, if not, that's going to help us determine. That could be one of the make or breaks for the big decisions we have to make on this project. Moving inside, on a little bit more of a microcosm of that issue, classrooms, different ways to move from classroom to classroom through without having to enter the corridor, those types of safety issues. And you can see active design is what's going to be operational, but passive design, again, when we leave here, are we leaving you with an inherently safe school? That's not a great thing to have to talk about, so let's talk about dreams.
Dream is our second D, and this is the fun part where we all get to participate in the visioning of the Eustis Elementary of the future. I mentioned that we'll be meeting with the community in small focus groups and committees. When we come together in these visioning sessions, we usually provide some visioning exercises. It gets the juices flowing, if you will. Here's a red dot, green dot exercise that we like to do. Put up photographs of architectural details, spaces, and ask the participants to use a red dot or a green dot to say whether they don't like or like the image, and then we discuss why, and it gives us some insight into what's going on in the minds of the participants. We also do some sort of esoteric exercises. This one, the participants select some from a group of photos on the table, fairly random photos, and there's a fairly long question that we're posing to them, but basically the photo, they have to answer the question that this photo represents our new school because, and we get a lot of great information from that kind of an exercise. Here is some images of some visioning sessions in progress. In fact, the lower left and upper right, that was just about a week ago. Tom and I were presenting, we're leading a visioning session in your neighboring Orange County along with our other team members. And what we find is that when you focus the thoughts in the group, that you get beneficial stuff. It's not just a gripe session, and so using these exercises, that's very helpful. One issue that we sometimes have to overcome is that frequently the visioners can't really envision, they can't convert their words into graphic images or 3D, so we've even employed a caricature artist to participate in the sessions to listen and begin to put into 3 dimensions the thoughts that are being presented by the participants. We use a number of communication tools throughout the visioning session and throughout the process, and again, to help visualize. We'll be modeling the site and the buildings as we develop this in a computer model, and we can use those models to begin to walk people through the building or around the site. Sometimes we'll even use virtual reality goggles and let them really get into it. It helps.
That's fun.
Then we get into define the major space planning decisions. Where does the value lie? Is it in what's out there now, or is it in education? Prioritizing the needs and unique ways to honor the past is that last bullet point there. And so this is you Kinsey Elementary School is a project Harvard Jolly worked on. They had a historic arch up in the grainy upper left black and white photo there you can barely see. We were able to replicate that arch using bricks from the original building on the lower left there. The architecture of the building, you can see, is a very simple throwback to the Mediterranean style there, so there are very cost-effective ways to get that look back.
One of the things I love about Eustis Elementary is its existing details. On the slide, you'll see shots of this is a bad term, but it's a sweet school. It is beautiful. It's got a lot of character. And I appreciate it, and I know that those that have used it through the years and visited it appreciate it. There's an architectural theory about memories. Memories are a product of a body's presence in physical space. We become sentimental about these memories that we have. So one thing that happens sometimes in projects is we're not able to preserve the memories in place, but there are ways to keep the memories alive. In this case, we used, in this case, these are roof tiles from a project used in a new installation, a usable installation. This is a screen wall here on the lower left, but it harkens back to the history of the building that pre-existed this building that was built.
And this photo on the lower right-hand corner, that's another way. These are, this is from Apopka Elementary School, a project we had worked on a number of years ago. They brought in an artist. These are big panels. They're 4 feet by 8 foot paintings. And each panel brings you through a time in Apopka's history, beginning with the first Americans, moving on to the foliage capital of the world, and then in that last panel there was a baseball team that went real far a number of years ago, their amphitheater, their 50-year mayor, John Land, as well as some musical acts that came out of Apopka.
And then one of our real big decisions to make is how we're going to teach in the new facility. And these are 4 examples of classrooms, and it's actually the same classroom. And the only difference is the configurations of the furnishings and equipment in the classroom, but each ascribes to a specific teaching style. And so these are things that we need to discover in the process that we want to include in the project. And then how far do we go with these teaching styles? Here are some sort of forward-thinking spaces, some collaborative spaces, some different types of learning environments. And does the community want to include these types of things in a new vision of Eustis Elementary? Thank you.
Next stage is design, the functional planning, what's appropriate for the chosen designs, again, understanding the program, site design, and vision alignment. Again, bringing all that information we got in the phase 1 portion of the project, now bringing it into the building. Some bricks and mortar stuff here, square footages, programming. We'll go through all that with you, make sure we have the spaces we need in the building. And then on to the site plan. We know this is obviously an overview of the site. Up on the west side, we understand there are some opportunities to grow over to that side. We can provide cost-benefit analysis of trying to take or buy some of those properties, whatever we need to do to help try and move the campus over that way a little bit more. South Salem Street, we know that's currently a pickup and drop-off area. We know it's problematic, but we know there's opportunities there to help out with that issue. This shows a school with just showing how we investigate some of those circulation issues, bus loops, car loops, but even more important in a campus like this is pedestrians, bringing the kids on site, the walkers. Here's a high school, we did the same thing. And again, it's really looking at how we're going to get cars and buses in and out, and especially the walkers, making sure that the walkers are safe. And then on to delivery, the final stakeholder review meetings. We've got the project all ready to go in schematic design, potential phasing with the CM, and on to the master plan documents. And then the timeline for phase 1. Phase 1 is the big part of this project right now. Here's a sample schedule. We know that workshops 1, 2, 3, and 4 is where the value is in this first phase here, and that would take place in the months coming up to the end of the year, and then we'd analyze all the data throughout the spring and give you a deliverable around May of '25. This is a sample of a Phase 2 and Phase 3 construction documents onto that our delivery date around the end of '25, and then spring of '26 to bid and permit the project with the start of summer of '27, wrapping it up in the summer of '28.
And then the final criteria is our staff qualifications and workload. And we know you've received our submittal package, and so we don't want to belabor the information that you already have. But I do want to talk specifically about our team. Our office in Orlando is an 11-person office. The head of our office is Chad Jones, upper center in the slide here. We have a principal in charge for this project who's an educational planner. He has decades of experience doing education master planning, and he'll oversee the work that we're doing through the office. The lower right, our interior designer, Nola Davidson. And then I want to introduce you in the lower center to Gina Otero. She is a young up-and-coming architect. She's been with our firm a few years, and we're mentoring her. But as we're mentoring her, we're also listening to her ideas. So we want to make sure that we have some young ideas included in the decision-making process as we're planning with you guys. So that's why we've included her on our team. And now I want to talk about our consultants. Kinley Horn, our civil engineer, ASD Structural. And then Matern, Leah's here with us today, Leah Matern, our mechanical, electrical, and plumbing engineer. You're probably familiar with her. They do extensive work in educational projects.
We've never seen her before.
Will you be in the last two as well, Leah?
Get comfortable, Leah. CCNA is our cost estimator. And then we have an in-house building envelope group, Building Envelope Asset Management, BEAM. They participate in all of our projects. They're part of our team. What we're trying to do is to make sure that the building envelope, the roof, the walls, the insulation, the waterproofing, all of these components are worthy of a building that will last for a very long time. And so doing this in the early planning stage, a little counterintuitive unless you think about how it could impact the longevity of the building. We also have over 100 staff in the state of Florida, a very deep bench. We have 7 offices around the state of Florida, and so this is helpful as we try to attain sometimes difficult schedules.
You can look a little more closely at this in your book, but the bottom line is we're ready to start now. Again, we have the nationwide presence. We don't mean to ring our bell there, but marketing likes this slide. But again, we're the local guys, but we have the resources of a nationwide firm.
And why us? As I mentioned, I'm thrilled to have this opportunity, so thank you for providing it to us. We are listeners. We're local. We're learners. We are leaders in our industry of education architecture, and we'd love to lead you through your project. This is a teamwork. We want to go from the cramped, dark past into the bright future, and so we would be honored to be your architects for this. And we ended a little bit early. I hope that's okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We're here for questions.
Thank you. Mr. Mathias?
So have you been to the site and walked it?
Yes.
And it sounds like to me your approach is to preserve as much as you can. What do you think about how much you're going to be able to save?
Candidly, I'm skeptical about how much we'll be able to save of the building itself. There are good aspects of the building. I think the interiors are not working for education in the 21st century at all. And so that's a big deal because that's what we're here for. So I think we can explore options to perhaps preserve portions of the existing shell, or maybe we can harken back to them with the architecture of a new building. And all of this really needs to be coming from the community. I know it's a hot button, and we're here to work through the process.
But you also know the budget for the project, right?
Yes.
So do you help drive the conversation? Because the public, the calls I've gotten is they want it saved, but there's a point where maybe it doesn't make sense. And do you help to bring them around? I appreciate your listening, but at some point we need to lead.
Absolutely. I mean, sometimes you have to shake the public and say, you know, what you're really asking for is something you do not want. You're asking us to educate your children in a space that is no longer viable for education. We have budgetary limits, we have space limits, so I don't know what we will encounter along the way, but we will certainly walk through it with you because we have to. We have to get to the right decision, not just the popular one.
That's all I have. Thank you. Great presentation.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think I just shared the greatest concern. As I was listening to this presentation, I was just kind of having flashbacks of how many members of the community came forward when we were getting ready to tear down Claremont Middle and replace that. And, I think for some folks in the community, just saving some bricks and remaking an archway is probably not going to be enough. So I'm really interested in that background that you bring from the historical preservation side of things and seeing how you might be able to navigate some of those conversations. Can you think of a time where you found it to be very, very challenging with a particular group, and how did you overcome that challenge?
Let me share a project that I worked on. I was working for the Historic American Building Survey. That's with the National Park Service through the government. We were documenting historic buildings. The historic building we were documenting was very uninteresting architecturally, but it had, through the years, it had become a laundromat, but it originally was the birthplace of women's rights. It was in Seneca Falls, New York. And so the vision of it was that we knew we couldn't have a laundry as a center point of the community or the movement.
Especially for women's rights.
There were apartments upstairs, but anyway, what we ended up what we did was we documented the portions of the laundromat, if you will, that were historic, the portions of the walls that were original, because it was originally a chapel. And we were able to demolish the portions of the walls that were not original and leave the remnants. And it was a park, it wasn't a school, but it became a remnant park, if you will. And you could envision yourself in the space, understand where you were in the time for the movement. And then there was new construction adjacent to it. There was a kind of a welcome center and that sort of thing. So we were able to incorporate it, not directly use it, but still explain the history of the building. In the case of this project, I would like to explore the front wall of the building is where the architectural imagery comes from, the gallery, we saw it, the brackets and beams of the gallery, just the parapet and its shape and its proportion. All of that is beautiful. And maybe we use it to help solve a problem. Maybe it becomes a part of our security barrier. Maybe not necessarily the front wall of the school, but maybe the front wall of our campus. I don't know if we'll have enough space to do that, but it's one of the things I'm thinking about as a possibility.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr.
I have no questions.
Yeah, building off of those comments, I agree. And I like that you mentioned in there prioritizing needs versus wants, and ensuring that we make the right decision in this project and not just necessarily the feel-good decision. And I appreciate your how you outlined those stakeholder sessions. I think that's exactly what we need on a project like this to really get that granular in depth and look at all types of school construction here, whether that's a traditional K-5 or an early learning center or something completely different, or, as Mr. Mathias alluded to, not a viable site whatsoever if that's what we come to. But we're going to lean on you guys or whoever we select to really help us get to that decision. And I think you guys can help us do that. I appreciated the LHS renovation. I think that's a similar project with that historic front building, and it still looks the same as it did back then and is far more functional than it was on the inside. So that helps. But yeah, just as we keep going through this project, I think this question's more for staff, but when do we think we'll have an answer on our friendly neighbor resident or whoever else on what our site is going to be so we can plan appropriately for whatever reality is? Like, I mean, if we pick an architect and a CM here in a couple weeks and they start working and we're either building around this house or we're not, like, when's the cutoff point for that so we can plan appropriately? Does one exist?
That's a difficult question because I think it really depends on the board.
Sure.
So, as we discussed, I don't think that we will, if we decide that we want to pursue that, I think that the Schlumbohms will talk to us, right? But also the board will have to realize that at some point you probably have to pay above appraised value.
Okay.
And so, that's part of the discussion is is there enough benefit to be gained in a more cohesive site that works better and easier, that, it's worth that, whatever that amount is above the thing. So.
What does that mean, above, what is the number right now? Or what's the number that's been offered?
So their last appraisal, and it's been a little while, I'd probably have to go back and get it appraised again, and the market just kind of keeps fluctuating. It's also a very difficult parcel to appraise because there's not necessarily a lot of similar comps. I think the last discussion was that the appraisal was around, let's just say 250, and they were asking about 400. And so, that's the decision, right?
Okay, so why would we not buy it?
Okay.
I mean, that doesn't seem unreasonable.
Not at all.
That does not seem
No.
unreasonable.
Well, and that's the problem. They have to be able to buy something.
No, I'm saying, why don't we do
saying
the
that's a good
400,
thing.
call it a day?
Yeah.
For
Well, and-
$150,000 now we get a cohesive school site.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Like, I thought we were talking a difference of millions.
Me too. I was waiting for
no.
$1 million too.
Yeah.
no. So, okay. We can certainly go back and have that conversation with them.
I think there's consensus here to do that.
Yeah.
Is that right?
I'd like to see the comps.
Yeah, I
Okay.
would too. I mean, there's,
What I probably need to do is have it reappraised so that I have a new value. And I need to have a conversation with them and say, give me your number now.
okay.
Okay?
Take a checkbook. Go ahead and write it.
That's right.
That would be your checkbook.
I mean, just being fair, Kelly, if that's the number we're kind of talking, that does not seem outrageous to me, in order to have a cohesive plan, because otherwise we're going to be jockeying around, right?
50 million,
Okay.
right.
Well, then we still have the conversation, do we spend the 50 million at all? I mean, I still don't think we're there yet. I agree, for 150 grand, it's probably worth it. But as we continue to master plan this and see what fits and how we serve this community, it's still a big, big number to throw at a small site. So yeah.
Special site.
It's a very special site, I agree. A
They're
very,
all
very special
special.
site. We got 44 other special
Yeah,
sites.
they're all special.
Got to keep up with too. So that's all I've got, but thank you guys.
We certainly appreciate your time and your interest in Lake County. I think you gave us a very thorough and excellent presentation, and certainly we look forward to the answers and possibly working with you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Can we get a 5-minute break?
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Great. Just kidding.
He was,
Next.
no. Him, he's Zyscovich. He's English. No, he's English. Never mind. He's Schenkel Shultz. Okay.
I like the little.
Good morning. Yep, this works.
He says good morning. I always want to say good morning.
So- I'll have you do
Thank you.
a quick introduction, unless your introduction is built into the,
Thank you.
It's built into the presentation.
okay. So you'll have 25 minutes for the presentation. I'll keep time. I'll let you know the 10-minute mark, and then the 5-minute mark, and then the 2-minute mark. And then after that, we'll open it to Q&A.
Okay.
All right? So, and when you speak into the microphone, please. That
Okay.
works, and this works.
Okay. So you ready? Ready? Yep. All right, well, good morning, and thank you for allowing us to be here today to talk to you about this exciting project at Eustis Elementary School. You see the caption on the screen, Bound by Generations, Inspired by the Future. We have that there because that really kind of speaks to our mindset as we approach this master planning, and that, Eustis Elementary School, as a 100-year-old school, has certainly been in that community for a long time, but is in need of an infusion of the future to go forward. So as we go to the next slide, the caption, history is the roadmap to a better tomorrow. To us, that really kind of encapsulates how we're going to approach this master planning effort. It speaks to how we plan to work collaboratively with you, the school district, and the community in Eustis to honor that history that is there, but at the same time find that pathway forward together to the better tomorrow. Before we do that, we need to understand a little bit about the history.
So as you know, Eustis is a very unique community with a lot of charm and history. And that speaks a lot to what we want to do here today. So when we were visiting your town, we learned a lot. So Walter Kinney, he was a principal at Eustis Elementary School in the 60s and 70s, and he actually played a really big role in the integration within the Eustis school system. We also heard about the Farron family. They were actually one of the first settlers in Eustis, and a lot of their generations went to Eustis Elementary School. And the connections don't stop there. So the passion within Eustis Elementary School is strong. You can feel it and you can see it. So from the volunteers from the Journey Christian Church painting the affirmation walkway to the students planting seeds in the Pride Garden, you can really see that this is a family community. And I would be very wrong not to shout out Principal Broadway and her amazing faculty for doing everything that she can for these kids.
So you also asked us to talk about some very specific criteria today, and one of those is the qualifications of staff and our current workload. So I'm Dave Torbert, a partner in charge with Schenkel Shultz, and I have with me today Patrick Rao, who will be our project manager and lead architect. And as you can see, Patrick has a significant amount of experience master planning projects exactly like Eustis Elementary School. I have Charlie Muzeka, whom you've just heard from, as well as Adrian Perez, and as you can see on the screen, our entire team of consultants who are all experts in the planning and design of K-12 facilities. In terms of workload, we provided this simple chart to kind of demonstrate that not only do we have capacity now, you can see that it's falling off, and I think the best summary I can say is that we need the job. We want the job, so we'd love the opportunity to work with you on this. More importantly, you asked us to talk about our experience and how that will bring value to this project.
So one of the ways we're going to bring value to this project is our recent experience right now working with you all on schools like Beverly Shores and the Villages. These are very recent projects, and there's a lot of lessons learned that we think are really, really important. One of the first one is the value of face-to-face meetings with the faculty and the staff has been tremendously helpful on both of those schools. And what that does is really walking through the school, kind of getting firsthand knowledge with the principal and her staff and the whole entire team is incredibly important in our experience. There's also, I think, a lot of commonalities that we're kind of noticing as we work on these projects that are already existing. A good example is things like the safety security at the lobby space, low voltage technology. All those things are kind of a commonality that we're seeing in all these renovations. One of the ones in particular is actually at the cafeteria, and we noticed that on both of these schools, there was really no speaker system or AV system set up in the dining hall. And so that was one of the things that we learned, is that a lot of the teachers are kind of like literally wheeling around karaoke machines, like in the dining hall in the cafeteria. And so the idea on both of those schools that we're updating all those speaker systems to accommodate that technology. So they're just some of the examples of some of the, again, the lessons learned that we think are important that we're utilizing on this project.
So, equally important to understanding those technical and functional things that we think are likely going to be applicable to Eustis Elementary School. Our experience working on historic campuses has also taught us that it is vitally important to honor the legacy that a school like Eustis that's been in the community for 100 years, you have to do that to do this right. And so in our experience, honoring that legacy can take a lot of forms, and that's part of what we would look at as we go through the master planning. Some examples of that you see here, it's like the statue of the eagle holding a piece of the Pentagon from 9/11 that is at Dexter Elementary School up at Fort Moore in Georgia. Another example, Rebo High School up in Jacksonville, has some very nice artwork that was a part of the existing campus. So finding ways to honor the legacy by taking those physical elements from the existing campus and building it into new is one example of that. Other examples of that include things like honoring the history and the people who were involved in the school. So here are some examples. Ramey Unit School, where we literally wrote a book about the history of the school that is in the process of being published in the Library of Congress. Or Phyllis Wheatley Elementary School in Apopka, Florida, where we created an honor wall to honor the namesake of the school, a very prominent African-American poet. Or Hungerford Elementary School in Orlando, where they had some hand-painted portraits of some of the key individuals that were responsible for the development of the school. Not only documenting those and preserving those, but then again also incorporating those in. And then there's also the version of honoring the legacy specifically of the building. And here are a couple examples. Newell Hall up at the University of Florida, an over 100-year-old building that needed to remain, but they wanted to infuse it with some innovative academics. And so, that's an example of a project that Patrick has worked on. Another more recent example, Orange City Elementary School had a building, a 1929 building that, as a portion of that campus, that had to be preserved. And this is a project, again, that Patrick and his team have just recently completed and is now in construction. The importance of this and the value that we bring is that we really understand, Patrick really understands the details that go into preserving an existing historic building. And there are a lot of details that have to be paid attention to.
The next section was understanding the importance of master plan, which we know is an incredibly important part of this project here, and specifically how it relates to Eustis Elementary School. We really think it comes down to three kind of big picture components for master plan. Number one, creating the vision. This is about kind of dreaming the dream up front, understanding what all the big picture goals are, defining all the goals and objectives. Community engagement, especially in a project here at Eustis Elementary School, is incredibly important. So really getting early feedback from the community and all the stakeholders is really important. And then the third item is essentially aligning the construction and the budget together. The first two we're actually focused on a little more later in the presentation, but I want to take some time to kind of talk through that third one in a little more detail. We know that for this project, we have a construction budget of about $26.8 million, tentative completion June of 2028. And that there's currently right now about 410 student stations at that school as it is right now. We also know there's a preferred objective to increase that to 750 to 800 student stations. Now, again, because we have recent experience working on other projects right here in Lake County at Fruitland Park, Beverly Shores, we have very, very real-time local cost data metrics that we can apply to this project to help us align the budget and the scope of work that we're talking about. So, for example, for some perspective, Fruitland Park, brand new school, 850 student stations, we know that's going to be probably about $40 million based off of recent cost data. We look at cost per student stations for classroom additions like we're doing right now at Beverly Shores, for example. We can kind of use a good rule of thumb, about $33,000 per student station, and that kind of information helps us analyze pretty quickly early on in the master planning phase how much you're going to spend on a classroom addition to offset the increase in student stations that you're looking for. And then we have cost information as far as new construction, roughly what the range is for new buildings also. So all these things help us kind of align, again, the budget and the scope early on. And then part of the approach too from master planning is to give you a very wide range of scenarios that all fit kind of different models based off of that cost information. And so I'm not going to go into detail of all three of these, but essentially it's an example of how we could look at, from a master plan perspective, identify three very different unique scenarios that all have, as you can see, different scope and obviously different costs associated with each of those. So master planning is really about aligning both of those items together and making sure we find the right package and the right fit for this project. The next phase is really focusing on our approach to phase one. We know this is a really important part you want us to talk about today. So here's our kind of approach to this really important phase, and also we're going to talk about a timeline for each of these components of phase one as well. The important thing to understand is that there are some really key qualities that should be really overlaid at every level of phase one. There's things like active listening and research. That means really coming to the table. Again, those face-to-face dialogues really are helpful. Listening and then responding, coming back to new meetings that say, hey, we listened to what you said here. Here's an idea we can think about. So it's kind of building on all of our listening and active listening research. Informed recommendations, doing the kind of the due diligence as far as analytics, understanding kind of the campus, all the technical parameters and kind of the findings that we're learning. Simplified communications, we think is very, very important for a project like this, because what that means is really breaking down all of that vast information into very easy to understand, concise information, and then we can really make informed decisions off of that. And then the fourth item is creative solutions, which is about getting into kind of innovative, outside the box idea thinking to really make sure we meet the needs of the project. So we broke this down into different PAW points for the school here. So PAW point 1 for our approach to phase 1 is, again, listening and gathering information. This phase, as you can see, will take approximately 4 weeks. And the main objective here is to identify some big picture project goals and objectives and really get very good firsthand information with the staff, the faculty, interviewing and really getting great information right up front. We also think it's very important to identify how is this community relations component going to work. Let's identify an executive committee that has all the right stakeholders early on so we can engage them right at the beginning of the project all the way through.
So PAW point 2 is technical analysis and assessment. So this slide's really looking at the site constraints. So Salem Street runs and bisects the site. And Salem Street is primarily used for student drop-off and pickup because there's no on-site parking or stacking. And also we want to consider the age of the site. So stormwater permits weren't really a thing 100 years ago. So we're going to have to address that moving forward. And then this slide is looking at building constraints. So I actually had the privilege of touring the school, and we heard you loud and clear. The kindergartners need bathrooms. We also know that the cafeteria is undersized, the admin is scattered, and the kids' shoes get ruined with the unintentional sand pit. We also want to mention that Building 7 was constructed recently, so it does need to remain on the site. And then this assessment also looks at the electrical and HVAC systems, and again, considering the age, it's not surprising that these are out of date. So this whole PAW point 2 altogether will take 6 weeks.
Another point of this PAW point 2, the technical assessment, is analyzing the historical part of the building. So building 1 obviously is a 100-year-old building. It's going to have a lot of challenges that go along with it, but there's a lot of really, really amazing things that are with it that you don't want to lose sight of. For example, as you first walk in, they have these beautiful wood trusses, vaulted ceilings, the corbels. All these things are fantastic, and you just honestly don't see them in a lot of new construction these days. So we want to make sure we maintain those, but we have to do it in a way that makes sure that it's structurally safe for the occupants. So do a structural analysis of all the ceiling trusses. The windows on the bottom left there, again, they're single pane glazing, so they're not very thermally efficient. We want to replace them in a way that is not only efficient for the building, but also kind of respects the original profile when this building was built. And that was one of the lessons we went through on the Newell Hall project that Dave mentioned, the historical analysis. There are certain ways to go about specifying and designing and detailing these elements properly so they fit in with the original character of that building. And because, again, it's a building that's 100 years old, there's going to be a lot of issues on the exterior envelope. One of the things that we did actually on Beverly Shores, we did a complete building envelope assessment, which includes thermal imaging to look at where the leaks are within the building and make sure we can repair those so that it's a much more efficient building at the end of the day. And then, like Charlie mentioned, there's a ton of HVAC building code updates that just don't meet code as of today right now. So there's a lot of challenges that go along with building systems, and you have issues obviously with the bathrooms. And in general, the classrooms and media center are all undersized because 100 years ago, classrooms were just designed differently than they are today. The next PowerPoint number 3 will take about 4 weeks, and this is about simplifying all that information. So I mentioned at the beginning that was one of the important components of master planning. The approach here is to utilize a tool that we've used on previous projects. And this is a spreadsheet that you can see here, and we just, for the sake of the conversation, call it the red, yellow, green spreadsheet. It's very original. But the idea is that we go building by building and then analyze all of the elements within that building. And what this does, it gives us one-page kind of summary about how the building is performing and looking at what needs to happen or needs to get upgraded. So for example, if it shows a green bar, that means that, hey, it's in pretty good shape. If it's a red bar, it means, hey, there's a big problem with this element of the building, and then the yellow is kind of somewhere in between. And it's not really a surprise with Building 1. The oldest building has a lot of red to it. So you can pretty much quickly see, hey, Building 1 has a lot of needs. If you're going to renovate that building, that has to get updated. Building 7, no surprise, the newest building has a lot more green into it. So again, it's just an example of how we would go about kind of simplifying the conversation and presenting it in a way that's really easy to understand and digest. The other thing at this level too is doing town hall presentations. Again, presenting to the community. I know that the historical city of Eustis historical registrar meets once a month. So going to town hall, kind of giving them updates on the project, where we are, and presenting those findings on a monthly or weekly basis are really important also. Okay, thank you. The last kind of part or component of the phase 1 is about test fits and concept planning. So this is more of the innovative idea approach. Again, this one will take about 8 weeks approximately. The idea here is we want to create a 3D model, renderings, animations, anything that can really convey innovative outside-the-box ideas, and then consolidate that information in a very easy-to-understand concept that meets the needs of the project. So you would see here right now is the existing campus, how it is. Obviously, the gray boxes are the existing buildings. On the right-hand side is the kind of satellite parking area here. And what we're going to see are 3 different ideas that are, again, very big picture examples of kind of our approach to master planning and how we would look at this project from this very early on phase. The first option is more about planning for future growth. Now, the idea here is that we know we have existing buildings to renovate. We know that we have issues with the cafeteria, which is undersized. So the idea here is that we would actually replace the cafeteria with all new construction, so it's an appropriately sized dining hall, the right kind of kitchen space, and then do 1 new classroom addition on the right-hand side there. Now, ultimately what this is doing is building up to what you currently have on the campus. This is essentially putting back approximately 410 student stations. But it's planning for future growth, as you can see in the top right-hand corner, that future ghosted box. So the idea is that you can do kind of a baby step, where if you want to replace what you currently have right now and renovate a lot of the campus, you can do all this, and this would have kind of the lowest dollar sign that you can see. This is probably an under-budget model because it's going to be the most cost-effective. We're minimizing how much new construction is actually going to happen, but again, planning for the future if you wanted to increase it to the increased student stations. Option 2 is a little different. This is more of a vertical expansion approach. In this model, we are planning for more new construction, but in this case, it's actually a 2-story building that fits over the existing courtyard space. It would have a new cafeteria on the first floor, where it's currently located now, a new media center on the first floor across from the courtyard, and then the second floor of this building is essentially all new classroom spaces. So this kind of creates a nice, secure courtyard area. It gives you the total student stations that you're looking for. But in this case, it's going to renovate a little less of the building. So again, it's kind of a balancing act about if you want to meet the budget, it's a give and a take. But in this way, you're actually putting back more new construction, giving it 750 student stations. And again, you can see the dollar signs go up a little more. You feel like it's still on budget, but this one obviously is more than the previous one that you saw before. And then the third option is really kind of an outside-the-box idea. So again, the kind of the objective of master planning is about dreaming the dream, identifying what the needs are. And so we thought it was important to kind of take a step back and say, what are some big picture objectives for this project? One idea, and again, there's a lot of nuances to this and challenges, but as an outside-the-box idea, you could purchase the additional parcel on the corner of Citrus Avenue, take away the right-of-way of that main road, Salem, which bisects the property, which is really only used for parent drop-off for the most part. And now you've extended the frontage along Citrus Avenue. You can build a new compact 2-story elementary school right in the corner there. And then what you could do is actually give back Building 1 to the community. That could then become part of the city of Eustis, and we would call this the Walter Kinney Park idea. So now, again, you're kind of giving back to the community of Eustis. You're creating a community park. You could have play fields, pickleball courts, basketball courts. So on the weekends, it's this really nice area. It's an amenity for the citizens that are surrounding this school. And then also have a brand new school for the students as well. And again, part of the process for master planning is condensing this information and consolidating it in a really easy to understand method. This is kind of an example of a decision-making matrix that we would then overlay on top of each of those three scenarios. And again, the objective here is not to have the perfect idea today. It's to show, we want to show a very wide range, a spectrum of ideas that we can pull and push from and really get the best kind of feedback from. So again, they all have their pros and cons, but the idea is that we would present this very wide spectrum of information, kind of come back and then kind of solicit feedback and really engage you all along this process.
So that kind of brings us to the end of our roadmap in terms of how we would approach this master planning process. I mean, as Patrick said, our objective today was not to come in and try to convince you that we've got the perfect ideas for you, but rather to demonstrate how we would work with you, try to simplify the information, have the dialogue, and make sure that we collaboratively get to the end of the road on Eustis Elementary School with you and with the community. And so, coming back to the quote where we started, history is the roadmap, we think that really to approach this project by embracing that history, embracing the community, and working collaboratively with you all to make sure that all of the needs for the community are met is really the way that this needs to be done. And so with that, we would, again, really love the opportunity to work with you on this project, and we'd be happy to entertain any questions.
Thank you. Mr. Mathias?
Yeah. With the different approaches you took, and y'all spent time on the site, right?
Yes.
So it looks like to me that you have, in our low budget approach, you're keeping the two buildings on either side with the admin?
Yes.
And you're of the opinion that they can be renovated and brought up to standard?
Yeah, yes, they can, although it depends on how you can use the building. Obviously, building one has the basement level, there's no ADA access, no elevators. So if you wanted to have students down there, you would have to then put in an elevator, put in a lift. There's kind of a domino effect with how you use that space. I think right now you could use it for storage area, or you could use it for offices or things like that, but it wouldn't really be used for classroom spaces. On this idea, what we're proposing actually is to utilize, again, we know that the admin currently is kind of scattered and it's a little undersized. So the idea is that we would focus the administration more along this area of building one on the upper floor, and then focus this whole entire wing for the media center on building one. So really not any academic classroom spaces at building one. It's primarily admin, media up on the second floor, and kind of not really needing the student station count on the bottom floor. We're using that for the new building to offset the student station count.
It gives you just, it's student station for student station. Right?
Yes.
And so the idea is to increase the student stations.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah, so there was multiple ideas. The first one says, if as an idea to consider, you could put back what's currently there now and plan for the future addition. Again, the drawback there is you're not increasing student stations, but the benefits of that is that you could probably be under budget for this approach. So it's kind of starting like smaller, medium, bigger. The other two options do increase student stations.
What about retention?
So most of the retention, because the site is incredibly compact, we're looking at exfiltration, most likely underground retention, just because of the size of the property.
And that was it. Good, thanks.
Mr. Dodd?
Yes, I was wondering if you could elaborate a little bit more about how you might have worked with community groups in the past who are really interested in the historical preservation of a site that's so meaningful, and how you balance that with needs of the future.
So what I'd recommend in our experience is that it helps to have a kind of an executive committee. I mean, a smaller committee is usually, you get better feedback and they work a little smoother. But you also have to have more of an open approach to the community at large. And so it's kind of several steps, if you will, where we have a smaller executive committee that have some feedback or stakeholders from the historical part. And then we also would then engage them later on as part of the process to say, come in and let's have a town hall presentation, give updates. When it comes to that component, the one that I think has worked the best in our experience is by doing these walkabouts. So the idea is that rather than having kind of one formal presentation where you all fill a cafeteria or an auditorium, we actually kind of break it down into smaller stages or groups, if you will. So like one component could have a stand that talks about safety and security. One corner of the room can have a space talks about historical preservation. One could be about classroom technology. And so rather than having kind of a lecture approach, it's like the community is invited to come for 2 hours. You put out like, coffee and donuts or water, whatever it is, and they can kind of make their way around. And then you get a lot more dialogue and feedback, because sometimes people are a little nervous to stand up in front of 400 people and say, hey, here's my thoughts on the school. But if it's a one-on-one kind of conversation, it seems to be really good feedback. So it's kind of a balance of both of those things.
Yeah, I would just kind of add on to what Patrick said about the executive committee, and just to make sure that we're clear about the idea. The idea is that you all would reach out to the community and you would establish a group from the community, and it can be as large or as small as you want. We do have a size, it gets too large, it gets a little unwieldy, but that seems to be an effective way to actually work through the hard decisions that inevitably are going to come on a project like this when you have to make all those choices, right? So that's another very effective tool that we would recommend.
Thanks.
I had a couple of questions also. So in all of your options, though, you have keeping the existing historic buildings. You didn't really, to Mr. Dodd's point, like there wasn't an option you provided that even, the concern I have about the historic building, you guys spoke about the top floor, so the bottom floor just stays because it floods all the time.
Look, again, it's
Yeah.
where you have options.
Sure.
As Patrick said, if you wanted to turn it into being usable for classrooms, there's some things you have to do. You have to put in elevators. You would have to address the water intrusion issues, and those kinds of things. And all those things can be done, but then that's that balancing the scope and the budget.
Sure.
Kind of thing. I will say on this option, we are suggesting as a part of the option that this stay and become a community center. It could just as easily go away and that become part of the park or part of the play area for the school. So again, those are all those different options and combinations and permutations that we would look at as we went through master planning.
Where are your play areas on this fit and the one before?
So on this one, we're looking at doing some playgrounds kind of off the building here. So playground play areas here, and then you could use this area for PE and basketball courts during the school day if they wanted to. And again, the weekends, it can be turned over to the community. That was the idea here anyways.
So should I assume there's a fence that runs along the outside perimeter of the property then for the access? Because we just talked about access recently, so that would be something to consider in that. And then on the design, the second design? That one, where's your play fields there?
On the second one, I think the play fields are kind of hard to tell in this view, but kind of behind the existing classroom building, we'd have some more play fields on the backside there. And then other than that, the playground I know be relocated to that side. The other play fields are kind of how it's being utilized now. So.
That kind of speaks to all that pros and cons analysis of all these different approaches. This one doesn't have quite as clear-cut defined area.
Well, and it's one of the issues we currently have there is the space for
That's a big
recreation. It's huge. It's a huge problem. I don't know if that's it. I have all that one. And this, I just added up your weeks along. You're looking at like 5 to 6 months where you're looking at that. Okay.
It certainly can be done faster, but honestly, for a project like this, when I think the community really needs to be involved, I think that's the appropriate amount of time, personally.
Yeah.
Can I tag?
Yes, sir.
But at what point, because your presentation is really the only one that's preserving 2 of the buildings, other ones preserve sections of it. I think that from the community I've heard, the more that can be preserved, the better, but there's a point where it's not feasible. So I'd hate for people to get it in their mind that we're going to save something and then we can't. So at what point do you do your analysis before you start pitching these different ideas for direction from the board? So
the biggest kind of challenge is building 1. That's the historical building. And in my experience, when you look at renovating historical buildings, for example, the cost per square foot for new construction is right around $400 a square foot. That's the reality of Beverly Shores, Fruitland Park, Villages. And when you look at renovating buildings, typically it might be about half that. In the case of a historical building, you might spend as much as $400 renovating the building itself. So it's almost like if you're going to keep a historical building, it's not necessarily because it's going to be more cost effective. It's going to be because there is an emotional attachment to the building that you want to keep.
But we wouldn't spend more.
You could potentially spend as much or more renovating a building like that.
That's my concern, is the more part of the conversation.
Yeah. To answer the other part of your question, Bill, so we would reach out and get that input from the community about the things that are important, and we would develop options. And certainly before we go back out and talk to any of the community or present any options, you all would have the opportunity to vet them and weigh in on the pros and cons and what you're willing to do in terms of spending your money to allocate these things.
For me, my preference would be that this board is aware of what the numbers are before y'all are out talking to people.
Absolutely.
That would be my preference.
Absolutely. That's exactly how I would
If they give you
recommend it happen.
input, if committees give you input, this is just human nature. And then all of a sudden, we do a 360, then that doesn't go well for us. So I'd much rather know those numbers up front when we're making those kind of decisions.
Okay.
But then you to go, I'm just saying.
Yeah,
I agree. Yeah.
Agree.
Okay, that was all.
That's all I have.
Tyler?
Great presentation. Thank you, guys. I appreciate the focus on budget and the different options based on different models. On the capacity side, can we even build the 750 student stations? Would the state allow us to do that? Because I always thought we had to have the growth to build and everything else so we can build this school way bigger potentially than it currently is. And so I mean, I'm looking at concurrency data.
Sorry.
No, you're good. Sorry, that was kind of backwards way of asking that.
Yes, there's actually been some changes. So basically, if we're using our own money, we no longer have to get the state's approval on the educational plan survey,
Got it,
which is
okay.
what you were thinking of.
So like on the
Yeah.
impact fee side is when we've got to get more of the state approval or just in general?
It is only on the CONDS money, of
Got
which
it.
they only give us about $1 million a year.
Okay.
So most of your money
Perfect.
is your money.
Got it. That helps. Because looking at the data as it sits now, I mean, we've got projected a lot of capacity at both schools based on the concurrency report 23-24. So I mean, I'm all for expanding this and doing it the right way long term, but when is enough if we're sub 70% based on this data at Eustis Heights and pushing it at Eustis Elementary right now with what Ms. Boardway shared on the numbers? I'm just trying to see what the right number is now we maximize this space, and I guess we'll figure that out throughout the planning process. Going back to the notes. Kind of like what Bill said on renovating Building 1. I don't know how feasible that is. And I'd certainly love to do it if we can, but is it really going to be that functional? And what do we do with that downstairs basement space? Because I don't think in any world we're ever going to put kids down there.
Well, I think they had some storage stuff down there, and that even
Can't
concerns me
breathe.
too, because if you're putting storage down there and it gets flooded, then what happens to the books and those types of things that are down there? So-
And look, that's kind of,
It's not a
I think,
good
the
space.
beauty of the master planning process. And part of the reason why we wanted to show you an array of options, even the options that you don't want to do, they have merit to study so
Sure.
that you have
100%.
all of the information about why you chose not to do something.
Yeah.
It's too expensive, we don't get, or whatever the case may be. So it's really the beauty of how you all are approaching this.
Are you comfortable with the 26 million number?
Depending on what the scope is. Again, the third option we showed you, that's not $26 million.
Sure.
That is kind of definitely beyond. But again, it was our way of showing outside the box ideas that were creative.
So I will tell you, my staff weighed in and they said in the capital plan that we just approved, there is about $48 million for this project. So I was close on the 50.
That changes a lot of things.
Sure.
That changes a lot of things.
Yeah, I like the 26.
That is the worst negotiating ever.
I was seeing what you were doing there, and then she's like, no, we have double.
Actually.
Okay, that totally just undermined my whole pitch.
I saw what you were doing there.
Well, it seems like one of the things, at least in your designs, is you don't really address the parking issue, right? Because you were functioning probably under the 26 million number.
Correct.
So now with this blue sky, pretend there's potentially 48 million, how does that impact this particular project in your perspective?
I mean, it changes a lot of things. I think from a parking standpoint, what we're doing, at least in this third option, was, again, acquiring the right-of-way for the portion of Salem and the rest of the property. You would have the ability to expand parking on site, as you can see next to the practice fields. The very first one was really kind of a minimal approach. It was say, hey, we're not really going to address the parking very much, or it's kind of business as usual. But now that you have the extra funds, you could do a lot more things, I think, with the construction. It gives you more new construction, which can be more vertical. You go more vertical, you save more real estate in the land. So it's probably a combination of looking at acquiring parcels, building more vertical, and then trying to get more usable lit space for parking and traffic.
Yeah, I certainly know that, I know design wasn't supposed to be really a component of this particular phase, but, I'd hate for us to maybe be somewhat jaded based on what you've presented or what we think we're going to get because of, differences in budget opinions or thoughts.
The one thing I would suggest is stay away from the whole community, we're giving buildings and stuff
Yeah.
away. I would stay away from that conversation.
That was going to be my question. I don't think that would serve our purpose to put that out there. Also, my concern about giving away building, the property that the building is sitting on kind of goes with the building. And since we have such limited space already, can we really afford to give away a portion of that and maintain a viable school site?
It's a very good question. That's a qualitative kind of answer to that. It depends on what you prioritize. And that's part of the reason why when we walked in here with these three scenarios, we could confidently tell you that none of these are the right one.
Sure.
They're just a way to kind of explore ideas and solicit those kind of questions and those kind of comments so that you can refine these down to what the options really need to be. We have worked with communities that they wanted to transfer the building to, that doesn't mean it's the only way to do it.
We don't want to do that.
Okay. It's not the way we're going to do it here.
Last one I've got, logistically, no matter what design we pick, how are we going to build this school? Like, space-wise, like, are we going to shift kids
I had that
to
question
use
after,
the
yeah.
heights? I mean, like, it's already a constraint. I want to build the school, don't get me wrong. But it's like in either option one or option two, I mean, we've got space up front, space behind, and then we're moving kids back and forth. And
Can you build it over the summer?
2 months?
yeah, how quick can we do this with $48 million?
Not all of it. Not all of it.
I am
No.
certain, I'm sure the district staff, just like we've worked out
Sure.
when we did our improvements in South Lake, we'll sort it out. And we got 3 years to do it, 4 years to do it.
I mean, and that's going to be one of the considerations that gets baked into the options in terms of balancing the budget and scope. I mean, if you have to do temporary housing for it, I mean, that gets
Sure.
baked in and because that has a number that goes with it. So.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
I had that question written down. What are we doing? But I was going to, like, at our discussion, I'm supposed to be in class in 15 minutes.
Good seeing you again.
You're thinking, you can't.
This was-
Oh, yes, thank you.
They don't fit.
Have a good day.
And what, you gonna have two
Good seeing you, man.
principals?
Yeah, we'll see you
Hi,
soon.
nice to see you.
All right, peace.
Can do that. Hi.
Great presentation.
Thank you for your interest.
Thank you.
Shoot, we got one more.
We got one more.
Oh, great.
This is that little guy.
Student engagement, that's what this is.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, sir. That's the clicker.
That's the clicker.
He's working
Oh, I
with
haven't
it.
seen
Yeah,
that.
Yeah, we'll be seeing.
That used to be how we did monthly.
Right, you want him there? On the table, it's fine if they're sitting? Okay, perfect.
I feel like
All right.
A little closer.
Imagine here.
Set up.
Good morning. Thank you.
Yeah, there you go. Okay.
Good morning.
Morning.
So you want to do a quick introduction of the team, or is it built in the?
built in.
Okay, so you'll have 25 minutes. I'll keep time.
Thank you.
I'll let you know the 10-minute mark,
They're all going
5
to try
minute,
with our
2 minutes, and then I'll kick you off.
They went till we read.
And this is the clicker.
This is the clicker.
Fantastic.
Cardboard cut.
Forward, backward.
Forward and backwards. And it's the PowerPoint. version
PowerPoint, yep.
That we sent you. Excellent. Fantastic. Right there. Cheers. All right.
Ready?
Sure.
You're on the clock.
All right.
Good morning.
Morning.
I'm C.G. Shultz. I will be the project principal on the project. We are very, very excited about this project. because
Hand him a microphone. He needs a microphone. Either one. There's a handheld one over there as well.
Okay, on my way here today, all the fond memories about our previous experience with Eustis High School, Eustis Heights Elementary School, and of course, Mandora High School, all flashing in my mind. We would definitely be very excited, interested to work together with you all as a team to successfully complete this important project. CT Shoe Associates merged with Zyscovich 2 years ago. We are now bigger and better. We have done more than 500 similar schools, including 150 campus master planning work. Previously, we have a local and regional experience. Now we have a national and even international expertise. We have proven methodology and track records to successfully complete the project planning and design. This is the same team actually work on all those previous Lake County schools, and now we have a deep bench supporting us as well. Harry?
Thanks, CT. Good morning, y'all. I'm Harry Simples. I'm the Senior Project Architect. Senior Project Manager on the project. I'll be the main point of contact for the project. I'm joined by Renee Alvarez, our Senior Planner and Designer, along with Alex Goff, who will be our Project Architect. And we'll also be having Jose Merguido, who will be our Educational Planner and Specialist. And we bring a wealth of knowledge and experience from education work, along with our core team as well as our extended consultants. And if we can go ahead and skip there. As you can see here, these are just a few of our projects that we've been working on over the years. Namely, as CT mentioned, Mount Dora and Eustis High School. Actually, both Renee and I were working on those projects from way back.
When we had hair. And
the photos were a little different. Renee designed both those campuses. He also designed Eustis Heights Elementary. So we'll be in the trenches on this project on the ground, along with our community outreach consultant, Veronica Anderson. She's going to be there with us to get the buzz out about the project, get everybody excited about it, and finding kind of events during the year to bring in the community and engage them and educate them on the exciting developments of the project. So this is just a snapshot of our current workload, and we do have more than enough availability for this project. We'll be starting our NTP in December, and we'll be able to continue that availability throughout the phases of the project. As CT mentioned, we do, being part of the Zyscovich family now, we do have a deep bench, so if there's certain times where we do need to pull from workforce, we can do that. So we have that availability. Renee?
So in terms of our experience and expertise, we have done a lot of master planning at different levels, from city planning all the way down to elementary schools. We have a couple examples here in terms of our educational experience. For instance, for Sanford, at Sanford Lake Mary campus for Seminole State, we master planned that campus. We also master planned their Oviedo campus for them. So these are where we go in. We're actually running workshops. Sometimes 30 people, sometimes 40 people are coming in to talk to us from the community, educators, and also leadership. And some of these takes two days, 3 days, depending on the type of work we need to do to get things accomplished. Another one that we've done is for Valencia, the public school safety safety campus. We started here with the yellow building that you see there. That was our Criminal Justice Institute, and then they asked us to master plan the entire site for a mixed interdisciplinary exercise location where the police, the fire, EMS, everybody comes together to work. So we had, in this particular case, we had 60 participants, and I think it was 8 or 9 different agencies that we had to coordinate to bring in, and we had several sessions with them. Closer to here, we have Deltona Middle School. At Deltona Middle School, we also ran sessions with the educators, the community, and of course leadership to get this middle school up and running. And we have a strategy of how to do that with the different sessions, starting with visioning and so on, and I'll show you the plan for that. This shows the folks that participated. We usually set up in groups, have discussion groups, join up together, read out some findings and take that in. And everything gets cataloged then in a report similar to this one, which I'll share with you, a case study for Pinecrest Elementary, which is a similar school to what we're doing here. Of course, Mount Dora, we master planned that, and oddly enough, it does have a street that runs between it, as it were, from the beginning. And in this case, we used a bridge. I don't think we'll necessarily have a bridge. We're going to hope to vacate that street and move forward and join the properties. But this was an exciting project. It also included part of the elementary that was there before, and it became a community center. And one of the tasks that we're tasked with here is looking at Building 1 and what might happen with it. What's the fate of Building 1 and how it gets incorporated. Perhaps it's a community center, perhaps it's part of the school. We're not going to decide that. We're going to decide that as a group. At Eustis at Eustis High School, we master planned that as well. And you might recall that in the 60s, 70s, a lump was attached to it back in the day. We came back, took it off, restored the facade, so it's a historic restoration of that building to bring it back to its original state. Closer, again, Eustis Heights. That was a larger master plan that we had that included a middle school, included the tech center, and also included the bus depot. So we worked all these things out and then finally came to the final design for the school itself, is what you see on the left there. So that was a large master planning effort there. It involved the city, it involved other planners as well. In terms of historic restoration, our experience is quite wide. Certainly, the Miami Senior High is one that just became a beautiful project. It won an award. And again, Eustis High School and Midtown Academy as well. So we have experience bringing these buildings back. Some of them are within the community, some of them are just citywide efforts. Now, we were asked what is the importance of planning, master planning the future of Eustis Elementary. And the master plans allow us to envision the future and exchange ideas, engage the community and stakeholders, study constraints and opportunities of the site, and examine the neighborhood, the historic factors of said neighborhood and the cultural factors involved, strategize the phasing options of how we can move forward. I mean, there's students there now. What do we do? How do we go forward? Very important is communication and generating consensus. The consensus is important because that's what drives the community to be on your side. It helps us move forward, and it helps us really define the scope of work for Phase 2. So we're concentrating today on the master planning as we were asked to do. We're not bringing you schemes or options today because we don't generate those. Those get generated through the master planning process. We need to listen, and that's what we do to move forward. We can say that we're going from a capacity, and we're going to be doubling that capacity at least. So that's one of those things that impacts traffic, impacts how the schools are seen. So we need to identify first and invite participants. And, we think we'll, of course, have community stakeholders, neighbors, the church itself, the city of Eustis as the planning department, the school stakeholders, parents, students, educators. They don't all happen at once, but we have to get everybody in there to work with us. Department leadership, facilities, the board, of course, and the construction manager being on board from the very beginning, because we can talk a lot, but if we don't have numbers that come with us to understand what different things would cost and how we can do that, we need them on board, and the design team. We typically create you can call it, there's different acronyms for it. We call it a PAC for a Planning Advisory Committee. So that group is a group that will follow through the master planning process every time. Other community members will join us at different times, other educators at different times. Of that group, we really need to keep them coming through, understanding what we're working on. And then basically what we have is 3 interrelated stages that are defined by a series of workshops. And for this one, we think we need 4 workshops These are major workshops. And when I say workshops, we actually work in the workshop. And starting with visioning and then a series of planning and design workshops to get the ideas out, to gather information. And this is really how it's structured. We have a discovery and analysis. We have concept development and alternatives, and then sort of the master planning, tightening up of the ideas. And in each one of these, there's a series of activities that we bring to these work sessions to pull out information. Some of it is us researching before and bringing that, like the real estate question about buying, selling, how can we deal with the other properties that are there, bringing that to those meetings, and going through, creating a new facilities list, and then coming up with options in those meetings. Topics to explore, there's a lot. There's a lot of things we can look at. The community itself, the vision, the goals, the objectives. A small campus with a large program, how do we accomplish that? There's a lot of buildings there already, a lot of them being taken down. Temporary swing space, are there any options for that? Acquisition of additional property. This is something, either it's acquired or it's shared. We need to investigate that. The fate of Building 1, right? There it is. It's a classic. It's been there for 100 years. People know it. A lot of people still come back to the school, and it's the alma mater for many. And then master plan alternatives with the cost implications that are in there. So we'll be investigating those. Now, we feel that we're uniquely qualified in this instance with the work that we've already done here in Eustis. We've worked with you all at Eustis High School, not four blocks away. And furthermore, also then Eustis Heights. And in both those instances, we have worked with the city in the past to coordinate certain things like the vacating of the street and so on. So they become part of our pack, essentially, for the project. The site itself, I'm sure you've heard many things today, and certainly the polemic of it over the years. It's very tight, it's crowded, it's filled, basically, to the brim. And right now, we're parking across the street. So there's property there. There's some holdouts in terms of property, and we're going to work through that to see how we can, when we bring them on board as part of the stakeholders in this, how can we work with them to see how we can increase the amount of property, but then perhaps we can't, and then we'll work within that framework. That's part of those variations. Building 1 itself, it's been there for quite a while. It has an image, 100 years working for the school, but we understand that although it looks like this on the outside, and it really is a face of the school, there's issues. There's issues that we're going to have to resolve. However, that first floor, there's nothing completely wrong with that we can't use. There's things we can do with that. Downstairs is a different question. We'll worry about that as we move along. Some ADA issues to be resolved, but it has good bones, but it doesn't have good systems necessarily. So, all right. So part of the things that we do when we start looking at alternatives is that we bring models like this to these workshops so people can actually visualize what we're working on and sort of discover when we start doing the work, bringing those things on here and placing them there to see what shakes. How does that work? Now, we understand that some of the buildings are custodied out. Can you take that piece out? And the problem gets worse and worse sometimes because all of a sudden you have a site with a couple of teeth still in it, and now you got to work around it. Building 1 stays, doesn't stay, but you start seeing how it opens up. Go ahead and remove Building 1 for a second there. If it'll, take that with you. So let's say some of the schemes perhaps don't include Building 1, and it opens the site in a different way. But what we also like to do is bring some of these models that we have below here. Just grab one of those. That's good. That's Eustis Heights, just for scale, so you understand what is, what we're looking at. Eustis Heights, take the other two off. Yeah, that one and the other one. When you put those fellows together, that's the amount of space that you need, in a way. There's some classrooms, of course, in Building 7, and those will be used, so you'll chop off some of the other ones. But it takes a lot to get these guys in here. Go ahead and put the other one. Put Pinecrest on there. So these are not ideas of what we think will happen here. This is just for scale. And traditional schools that are spread out with several doors are less safe than others, so we look at that as well. And each one of these kind of increases in its sort of being more condensed. And then last but not least, this is a school that Harry's been working on for Osceola. A lot more compact, but the same kind of measure of number of students. So there's a myriad of opportunities that we're looking at here. You can go ahead and put the other ones back.
So you lost me a little bit. Are you even on our site? Looks like me like you're off.
Well, we're as I said, we're not bringing you options. What we're bringing you is comparisons of size. So the top of that site is yours, right? Where the parking is on that side right there. This is where your campus is right now. So what we're saying is you need that much space built to be able to get the entire school on here. How that happens is what we'll be doing in the workshop. We're not making any choices right now about that. So that's just for scale comparison. That's how much we'll need to build to accommodate the school. Whether it's all on this side, where you already have a ton of buildings, or it's on that side, or it's half across. For instance, what you see on the screen right now, in 2011, a series of ideas had been worked on back then, and those were individual buildings, kind of stocking up the building 7, going to a second story. We're going to review all of those as well, but we're going to come up with new ideas, because that's really what we're tasked with, is looking at all the opportunities before we make a choice. The choice is going to be a consensus choice. And, of course, with input from as many people as we can get, and then we'll make some decisions about that. And Pinecrest is a case study that we'd like to bring to you in terms of how we did this. A school of the same size. This was for Seminole County. And basically, we run a visioning session to start. The visioning session itself involves the community, involves leadership, the educators, and what we try to do there is say, what do you think it should be? What could it be in the future? And we're not saying how big it is, we're not saying any of these things, it's what people would like to see this be. And that's how we start these projects. Like I said, we work in these sessions, so we have very specific tasks that we take on to gather information from the community, from everybody else that's involved, and that all gets, what you see there are the actual pages of the report that gets produced at the end. So it's all captured, and the decisions that are made are held there. Then we have planning sessions. And one of the first planning sessions is, okay, how do we want to structure the educational core of the school in terms of the grades? Are they grade level? Are they mixed? How would they be? And we actually use these pieces to allow the different tables to work on that and create these sort of educational core spaces and how they could be put together. The second session, or part of that other session, you can see on the left here how we'll use 2 stories necessary, when necessary, to display that idea, and then we'll critique everybody's sort of ideas. And in the next sessions, we bring those ideas cleaned up with all the parts and pieces so that we can then analyze those, and selections can be made from that in terms of, those were 6 different ideas, but it got consolidated into a hybrid that different people thought, hey, I like the pieces of that, I like the piece of that. So we gather, we listen, and then we come together to a conclusion about what might happen. And basically, this is why we master plan, to be able to find these ideas that are there.
We have included some of those workshop agendas in the handout.
On the left side, you have the agenda of the actual workshop that
And outline what we will be covered, and there's a flow of discussion information, and even the attendees, we document it.
And in essence, this is why we master plan. It's to get to a consensus, a school that everybody's interested in having the way it's been worked together, and with, great results in the end. That's just as a case study. It's very important that we listen and that we work together towards those goals. And this is who we do the master planning for, right? This is the product where you have students that graduated at Eustis High coming back to their alma mater when they were kids and really, being the role models for others. These are the memories, and they remember Building 1 and what might happen with Building 1 and how we can reuse that, and, is that the image for them to come back to school?
I would like to add that throughout all the years, we had opportunity to work on so many different schools, master plan for all the different school districts. I would like to say Eustis High still is the most close to my heart throughout all the years. Why? Before we were told that it's a failing school, has a lot of challenges. So we be able to go through all the stakeholder process, and then later on, I was told when school is finished, kids really love to go to the school. And so it's completely changed. Then later on, the school turned around, become an A school, and the principal was duly become the principal of the year of the entire state of Florida. So this kind of a story, that's what we feel as architects, this is what we are doing, is for you and for all the kids. To their success, happiness is our success. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We are in the time. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mathias?
So it's been many years. Do you have interns that do that modeling? Or who's creating that?
We do this in-house.
Yeah, with interns, I guess.
Yeah, it's a printed. And
Oh, you are using a printer?
Oh, absolutely.
It's been a long time since I've seen that modeling.
Yeah.
It's impressive. We used to do it with styrofoam.
And no, we have that one too. It's still there. If the power goes out and we have to go manual, then we go manual. But it really helps folks visualize. And once we start getting into the planning where we've actually created some ideas that can be better seen, you try them and you see what happens. Is this possible? How does it work? Where is the front of the school? Right now, the students are being dropped off left and right on the street. We need to work that out, and then we can start seeing that in a physical model as well.
So y'all have been to the school? You visited the campus?
Sure.
Do you have a sense about the dollars we've allocated, how much of the phasing or work can be done?
Well, the 28 million construction budget is not necessarily robust, depending on how much work we want to do, for instance, for Building 1. But we've always worked within the means of the projects that we've received. And honestly, until we don't go through that process, I don't want to make any judgment calls in terms of, because we might be looking at underground retention in a situation here, right? Because of the tightness of the site. If the neighbors don't cooperate in terms of the church and the property, if we can't get a joint use agreement for parking perhaps, all these things have to be investigated, and then we'll start with the CM being on board, we can start generating those numbers as, you're frying it and you're eating at the same time, just to keep
And you're doing all of that in advance of these community meetings that you're planning?
We do want to do some real estate analysis before and clarify some of those, but I think some of that will have to wash out while we're doing that process. In terms of the size of the school, the number of students that we want, and the buildings we'll have to renovate, yeah, we can do that start, looking at, well, we're going to have to put a certain amount of money in each one of these if we keep them, and then the rest needs to be new. We can definitely start looking at that so that we meet first before we ever go into a workshop to decide the goals, the objectives, and be sure that we're on the right track before we start opening that up.
That's all I had.
We will definitely value engineering all the different components to make sure the money is well spent. Also, through this master planning process, this is other opportunities that may come. For instance, if this is a community benefit with Building 1, and there may be other opportunity for applying for grant. And that we have been helping some other district trying to explore some other revenue avenues.
So you all did really a goal.
Oh, we did.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
And I think of some of the recurring themes, of course, when you're working with that site, you're tearing down a middle school where people used to go to high school. And, so the history there, and certainly if you talk about a building 100 years old, there's going to be some rich history here too.
Absolutely.
What sort of lessons did you capture from the Aurelia Cole experience that you think will help you navigate this particular design?
Well, I think that, and let me speak of one other one. We did Edgewater High School, where we ended up displacing residents for a whole chunk. And we had lawyers in our office that thought we weren't doing the right thing. We guided those folks through the process to show them we were doing the right process all the way through. And I think it's that inclusion that happens in the front. It allows us to have people working with us, like in the PAC, that actually then let other people know what is happening. We don't want that to happen here. We want people to be informed and follow through so that we can have consensus as we move forward and not run into incredible barriers. Like I said, I think that Building 1 has a lot of potential for a lot of different things. I can envision it being a media center, right, instead of just the classrooms. I can envision it being a community center. I don't think it goes away necessarily, but I can't tell you that right now until we go through all those numbers. The inclusion and listening is part of what we have to do, and we're willing to do that. Veronica's going to help us identify the folks and bring them in. We'll be using the opportunities that the school already has in terms of events that they hold. We will be there as well to start, bringing the messages in and inviting people to participate at the right time. So I'm not entirely familiar how Aurelia actually happened and what the issues were directly, but I can see that once you start taking out the alma maters of a lot of people, it becomes, an issue. At Edgewater, we had to take down most of the school, and we had to take people's homes, actually. So it was but if the process is laid out correctly and you bring everybody in, we can work through those issues.
All right, thanks.
I have no questions.
Neither do I. Thank you.
I have one regarding Veronica. Is it her responsibility to determine the makeup of this committee, or will those names come from the board or the district?
Comes from you.
So what exactly does Veronica do?
She will be able to coordinate with the school when events are happening and when we should be there. We also would like to contact, for instance, the immediate neighbors, whether it's directly or through mail, to let them know that this is happening. They're going to be right there. The wider community, really, when we talk about communities, the parents and folks that are engaged, stakeholders, certainly the church and others that want to be involved too. Some people just don't. We want people that want to be involved. But in the end, before those notices go out, that's why we have the first meeting. Let me see here. If I can find it, I will show it to you. Come on, I'm back now. And, okay, so that first purple one, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's us discussing how we're going to move forward.
Okay.
And really, the decision of invited guests, right, who really needs to be with us and so on, needs to be decided early, so that those folks that we really want them to stay with us along the whole process is one thing. The community, a lot of times, is the school, the children, because we also host children events. We'll have those at different moments. We'll have probably two, one in the beginning, also to let them vision, and then one later, when we'll let them play with Legos or something to create their school, and we involve them in that way, so there's a buzz. I can tell you that we haven't entirely defined her scope here yet, but she has assisted us, right, Sati, on various other ones that we've done for the city of Orlando and others, and she knows how to reach out.
Thank you. We appreciate your interest and your time. If there are no other questions, I guess we'll move into the next phase, Mr. Zachary.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Appreciate it.
So I'll be calling the rest of to listen. So after they come in, it's going to be open for, to discuss the 4 presentations. And then we'll give you some time to rank them based on your observations. And I'll tally the rankings after that. And the lowest ranked will be the one that we, as a district, go with. Okay?
Sorry, Mark.
Did we talk about it last time?
Patio. I know, it's
Very limited space.
very limited space.
Did we talk about it last time, or did we just vote?
I think we just wrote our rankings
They do.
down. I think if there's any questions, you
Yeah,
know,
very limited.
But we can, I guess we can choose to have as much.
or as
we
little.
want.
But I do think they knew like by the end of it. They did say, but I don't know, but this one's so clear for me.
I mean, but
I can't wait to see.
We don't ever get to see.
See on board doc later.
Yeah.
yeah. I just don't know whether there's much to talk about.
Just a different way.
Okay? It's open for you guys to discuss.
Thank you, sir. Board members, whatever discussions or questions?
So you've heard them, and you're going to have to work with them. How would you rank them?
Don't put me on the spot or anything. Probably 3, 2, 1, 4.
3, 2, 1.
Is that based on the way we saw them?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Now I have to decode it.
So which elements were most important to you that stood out and the ones that seemed to fare favorably with you?
I listened to more about like what they said in terms of how much they knew us, and I felt like the third presentation, they said some really like key things that meant a lot to us, especially with listening to our staff. I mean, it's been said a million times, but it's a very special project in terms of the community. So I felt like they really hit that on the head of how they would engage the community with the different visions and things like that. So I really appreciated that.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions or comment?
So the key is to see who addressed the evaluation criteria to the point the way they were intended to. So.
Are we done with my conversation? We're just going to vote?
No, I mean, it's up to you. If you gotta-
Do you have any other instructions?
No.
No. Well,
It's open.
I did have just one comment. and-
Yes, sir.
And we're not very far off, by the way, but I have one switched. So just- the one thing that impressed me with number 1 was BRPH, is they had done the 2020 case study. They were really familiar, and it seemed like they had a more defined direction that they, because of their knowledge already of the site. So I felt like we pick up some time. That's it.
Anybody would want to add to BRPH? There.
I'm not done yet. I just need a little bit more time.
No, just as a matter of.
Extended time, Ollie.
As a matter of discussion.
Extended time for
Right.
Stephanie.
Now we're just going to vote and then go on, right?
I think we just turned this in.
We just turned this
Yeah,
in.
we just turn it
We just turn it
in.
in, and he's got
turn it
to
in.
tabulate and compile.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the things that I thought was particularly important, well, after having navigated a lot of the community discussions with Aurelia Cole, and I think there was a very active group of alumni down in that direction, and they were very interested in seeing more elements preserved or so on and so forth. I certainly foresee this one being a 100-year-old building. There's going to be a lot of history there. So I think whenever I heard like historical preservationist, that kind of terminology kind of was harmonious with me.
Yeah.
But obviously, there's a cost for that, and particularly in trying to make spaces appropriate for this century's learning, right? So.
But Schenkel said they can do it for about the same cost. which, having renovated some things, I'd say that's not true. Big waters. Just kidding.
What I would say to all of the teams that presented today, we certainly do appreciate your interest. We appreciate the obvious amount of time that you put into preparing your presentations. So I don't want you to not understand that that is greatly valued and appreciated by the board. I think that each of you had something that caught my attention. I think also, having lived in the Eustis community for several decades, I understand that there is going to be a lot of interest from the community stakeholders. So I was very happy to see that each of you in some way incorporated those people into that. Does anyone else have anything that you want to add?
Yeah, I will say, and I appreciate your rationale for why we did it this way, but it did create it is more challenging. Everybody in here obviously knows how to do your job well in master planning. So everybody's got a community visioning, everybody's got a let's go to the school and figure out what the problems are and what you guys want and what the budget is. I just feel like to differentiate between the two was a little bit of a challenge.
Yeah, I agree. It was, when you have very efficient, obviously very qualified applicants.
Right.
It's very hard sometimes to distinguish which one has a little bit more than the other.
Yeah, because I think a lot of those distinctions come through in the design phase, where suddenly you're seeing the different levels of creativity and how you'd work with the space, and we weren't to that point yet, and so that,
Right.
you don't want one presentation to sway you because somebody is farther along in that creative process,
Right.
because that wasn't necessarily a requirement of this.
But that was what gave in the first one
Yes.
more weight with me, is the fact that they were familiar from 2020 and were able to come forward.
Yeah.
Even though it wasn't part of the criteria, it was impressive to me.
Well, it was good to see, and to see the different options.
For sure.
To answer your question more on why that third one stood out too, it was the honoring the legacy part. I was trying to figure out like what really stood out, and it was the examples of how they played homage to the 100 years that the school has already given to the community. And that's something that I've heard a lot, like, can we take the bricks from this and put, I mean, even on our campus, like, can we buy bricks and can we choose where they go? And, can we make a mural here? So that is the conversation, and I think it's because the community has come to the realization that building one is harder to keep up every day. So I think they're starting to come around a little bit more than they were in the past. So I think if we can create that sense of feeling like, okay, they're not just tearing it down and saying bye, we're having a way to bring it into the new school, I think it's going to be something that's very important to the community. At least I know for my teachers it will be.
There's a lot of historical significance.
Yes.
I have a brick from Eustis Heights that a staff member purchased and gave me in recognition of my 10 years as principal there. It's on display in my house. So, those kind of things are important. And I remember when all the high schools were redone, it was very important to each of the communities within the district that those schools, which is why you have Leesburg High and Tavares and Eustis, look like they do. So we really appreciate the fact that you recognize that and you created that and made it a part of your presentation. It's a long-standing tradition here in Lake County.
And I think in fairness, all four vendors did.
They did that.
They did that.
present that.
Which makes our job hard.
Yeah, I don't want to single out one vendor did it over the others. All
They all-
four of them presented
all-
that, and we have to be fair across the
Varying,
board.
varying degrees.
Yeah.
And,
Yep.
but all respected the history.
Yeah.
No, I agree. All four were very thorough. And what I think I'm most excited about for this project that we haven't done yet on the others is getting the construction manager on board early as well. So as they're going through master planning, we can really figure out where the cost is in these projects and what we can build, and be able to really have a great design from the beginning so we know we can maximize this space and build a great school. It's a very special site, very special school, and it's going to require a special process to get that done, and I think we're doing that here.
Well,
So,
we impressed upon all shortlisted vendor the importance
yeah.
of the site, the planning phase, and, we did impress upon them that. And I know it's challenging because you don't see different designs and all that, but we try to put criteria where you can separate based on experience, and hopefully that came across, or their approach to that.
I think it kept the focus too on how to
Yep.
engage the community
Yep.
and not how pretty does the building look.
And we're doing this moving forward, actually trying to get both the CM and the architect at the same time.
That's going to be critical, because
Yeah,
I'm just
we're
telling you, in a
doing-
renovation, you don't know what you got until you got it.
So we're doing that moving forward. We're
Okay.
posting, doing the same RFQs at the same time and all that, so.
Perfect.
That's the one thing we may want to add, is who they work best with. But I think they work probably well with all the major ones that we're selecting. Okay, let's vote and
So with
get out of
that,
here.
if you don't have any more comments, take time to complete your evaluation forms, and then I'll do the tallying and we'll go from there.
Done.
Thank you.
I'm just glad I'm not one of them that have to tally these ones this time.
I don't like that you guys make me look bad. So are we waiting for the responses to be tallied up, or is the workshop ending? Do you have to do this
There's
right this
nothing
second, or
else
can I
on-
take a minute? Are we ending the workshop while I take a minute? Okay.
You want us to go ahead and conclude?
Oh, wait a minute, we're going to end the meeting? Or are you going to announce it?
I'll tell you, I'll announce the results and then we can.
Okay, so that was my question.
Your extended time is cut off in 2 minutes.
Yeah, it's done.
You got 2 minutes now.
You do not have to the end of the school day.
Hurry up, for God's sake. I did start falling, though. We've had enough time.
To thaw out.
Yeah, thaw out.
I made the mistake and I sat right in your seat the first time we had
Terrible,
to do the
don't ever sit here.
17, go through the 17 things.
Yeah.
I was shivering, like my nose was running, my teeth were
It's
chattering.
freezing.
I'm like, oh, you can't do this again.
Scott Ward usually brings his jacket, but he doesn't have it today.
Oh,
I was going
God.
to text you. Dang.
He's always prepared.
I was like texting everybody in this office, saying, we have an extra jacket.
Well, there's your secret now, you know.
Yeah, now I know when to go to Scott.
Y'all want to do your comments?
Sure.
Okay.
I feel like we should do like Jeopardy music.
In keeping with trying to be courteous with our time, we'll go ahead to board member comments. Mr. Mathias?
I'm good.
Mr. Dodd?
Nothing.
Ms. Luke? Dr. Luke, I'm sorry.
Fine, thank you.
Oh, it's official.
It is.
It is official.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll just say thank you to our teachers and staff for being flexible on Friday with the storm day. That really threw a wrench into last week, but I think we got through it as best as we could, and we're extremely lucky that the storm damage wasn't worse. There's a lot of folks in a lot of other states that weren't as fortunate as we are. So I just want to shout out our teachers and staff there, and also the incredible team at Leesburg Elementary for always opening up as a shelter. Susan Jordan, Brandon Hudson, and their team do a fantastic job getting that place open. We had about 50 people come in to use that shelter Thursday night, and Calvin Wingo and his team were there first thing, 7 a.m. Friday morning to get it turned back over so our kids could be there at 7:50. So we made the best of a very difficult situation, and they just continue to excel with storm days. So just want to thank them for those efforts.
I don't have anything. Madam Superintendent, your comments?
I'm good. I'll just say ditto to Mr. Brandenburg's comments.
In the absence of our attorney, I guess we have no comments from him.
Easy.
He's feeling what I was feeling
Ollie,
just a
that's
minute ago.
Just waiting on you, sir.
It's going to be a three-way
I'm
tie.
doing the math in my head. I'm sorry.
Do we need to double check this map, Ellen? I believe in you. You got it.
Do it
Reading
again.
over your
You want me to
shoulder.
Double check?
I was
She already
double
did.
checking it.
Double check? Good? All right, well, we have a clear winner. Schenkel Shultz is in first place with 9 points. Second is BRPH with 11. Harvard Jolly, third, 12, and Zyscovich, 18. It's going to be Schenkel Shultz.
Well, congratulations to Schenkel Shultz. We certainly are very grateful for each of you. And as you can tell from the way the results came in, all of you have a presentation to be proud of. We look forward to seeing you again in the future on any of our other projects. And with that said, unless there's anything further from the board, meeting's adjourned.
Thank you.